DSCO is a guy with an intense passion for baseball, having participated in numerous baseball competitions held around the world. Additionally, DSCO possesses a special ability to read minds, allowing him to easily understand his opponent's thoughts and figure out the right strategy to play. However, his efforts were never acknowledged, as those around him remarked that his baseball skills were not outstanding, forcing DSCO to put an end to his dream-chasing journey here. From that moment on, his life became aimless, without any decent profession, leading him to wish for a career in gambling to earn lots of money, but his parents opposed it. Seeing this, his older brother arranged for him to work as a coach at a baseball club. With his business acumen and the special talent gifted by heaven, will DSCO be able to succeed in this new job? Let's follow his new journey together. In front of us is a tense baseball game, with the host continually providing close commentary. Will DSCO deliver a spectacular game for us this time? As he stands in a pitching stance, deep in thought, he wonders, what makes a great player? One thing I can be sure of is, it's not me. For instance, the average speed of my four-seam fastball falls around 124 km per hour. The opponent sneers at DSCO's skills, saying it's as slow as a turtle. Suddenly, the entire audience erupted, and the commentator couldn't hide his joy anymore. There's no question about it, it's a home run. Could player DSCO really be the undefeated war god? DSCO humbly assesses himself. Besides my slow speed, my curveball skills aren't that great either. The only useful thing about me is a bit of control. But even that is rated poorly, so I constantly hear these words. In the waiting room, a coach approached him for a conversation. DSCO, the coach pondered, you're not that talented in baseball. Why not take the time to learn other skills for development? I heard that you were top of your class back in school, right? So think it over carefully. Before those words, DSCO hesitated, thinking to himself, maybe this is a very wise piece of advice for a player, but After much deliberation, he finally made his decision. No, I'll keep playing baseball. There's a reason not to give up. Everything began when I was 15. During one match, just before pitching, DSCO carefully considered, what kind of pitch should I throw? A curveball or a forkball? Suddenly, a voice in his head said, fastball. As long as it's a fastball, I can handle it. DSCO's face turned pale upon encountering this bizarre situation for the first time. What's happening? Could I be hearing someone else's thoughts? Mind reading, this is why I can't give up baseball. DSCO grinned with excitement at this special talent of his. I can see through and predict every player's thoughts. With such a cool skill, how could I quit baseball? But mind reading doesn't always yield good results, the smiling coach said. Really? If that's what you want, DSCO easily knew he was just pretending to be friendly, while inside he was displeased with DSCO's decision. What a stubborn guy. No matter what anyone says, DSCO remained determined, vowing to himself, but I won't give up. I've been to many places to play baseball, from private tournaments in Japan, the US, to semi-professional tournaments in China. No matter where I go, I'll always try my best. But baseball is not just about effort and willpower. No team wants to keep me as a player. And at the age of 32, my baseball career came to an end. At DSCO's house, his father had a very serious conversation with him. My youngest son. He respectfully replied, yes, Dad. His father frankly said, I've been thinking about this for a long time. About what you're going to do for a living, DSCO. He seemed to understand his father's concerns. Of course, parents would worry. If I were them, I might be even more anxious. But I already have a great plan to utilize this mind-reading ability. DSCO confidently responded, Dad, I've thought it through. His father looked delighted, eagerly asking, so? Tell me what it is. However, his next words changed his father's expression. Please lend me 50 million won, no more, no less. His father, feeling like his limbs were about to give way, asked again, 50 million won. What are you going to do with that money? DSCO boldly declared, I'm going to play poker. He started rambling on and on to persuade his father. In America, there's a gambling tournament just like the Go tournaments here, with a huge prize, Dad. I'm sure I can win, just one win, and 50 million won will be like pocket change. His father's face turned livid. He called out, D-chan, my eldest son, go fetch the broom for me. I need to beat this fool senseless. His father gripped the broom tightly in his hand, fury rising. DSCO started feeling things getting out of hand. Trembling, he pleaded, Dad, please. A scream of pain echoed throughout the apartment complex. After the beating, he sat alone in the park with a huge lump on his head. Suddenly, his older brother D-chan approached, calling affectionately, little brother. He even smiled, teasingly asking, how does it feel to be kicked out of the house for the first time? Hurts, doesn't it? DSCO clutched his sore arm and replied, Hurts like crazy, bro, his brother gently said. Dad's been a detective specializing in murder cases for over 30 years. You can't win against him. Di-chang turned to stare intently at his little brother's face and shared, besides, I think you're kind of out of your mind. That blunt remark felt like a deep cut to DSEO's heart. He forced a smile to cover his embarrassment, then played dumb, asking, out of my mind? Me? No one's ever told me that since middle school. Di-chang asked, what did you think when you told the detective you'd use gambling to make money? DSEO stubbornly responded, it's a legitimate tournament in America. But seeing his little brother's obstinacy, Di-chang didn't want to argue and make things worse. I get it, and I also think you could do it. But now isn't the time. Have Mom and Dad ever opposed anything you've done? DSEO hesitated before answering no. Di-chang began advising his naive little brother, don't you think now's the time to show them you're just like everyone else? Find a job and bring home a paycheck for the family? Our parents are getting old, make them feel at ease, got it? DSEO smiled and replied, I get it. Do you think your little brother's dumb or something? After hearing those words, DSEO sat racking his brain, what job should I find? Maybe a part-time job, but what part-time job? Why did I play baseball in the first place? Di-chang took out a business card and handed it to his little brother. Here, take this. DSEO curiously asked, what's this, bro? He said, go check it out. I asked a friend to arrange a position for you. DSEO looked at the business card and was surprised to realize, a baseball exchange center. The next day, following his older brother Di-chang's advice, DSEO went to the center for an interview. Mr. DSEO? The director looked at him skeptically. Are you really giving up your baseball journey? He thought to himself, this man is Director So-man. He was very interested in DSEO's baseball journey. I understand the part about Japan and the US, but Qingdao in China also has baseball. You've traveled a lot, DSEO honestly shared. Yes, there's a semi-pro league there. Unexpectedly, the director grinned widely and said, alright, since you've played baseball, that's enough. Seeing his attitude, DSEO quietly realized, this optimism, he really is my brother's friend. Director So-man placed the contract on the table and said, since you're Di-chang's brother, I wanted to hire you right away, but the process still includes an interview, so I'll ask you a few simple questions. You made a very smart choice transitioning to this baseball exchange center right after retiring, that's good. Because quite a few wealthy people also come here to play. DSEO smiled and replied, I know about that. The director continued, building relationships with these people will open up many great opportunities. You could be asked for private coaching. Or, if you're lucky, you could be hired to play in their private baseball games. DSEO attentively listened to the director's introduction. I've only just found out about this. After some rambling, So-man began outlining the common difficulties everyone faces. But that's where the problem lies. There are many places now targeting these wealthy clients. In this situation, how should our baseball superstar manage the strategy? DSEO was startled and surprised by this question. Management strategy. Why did he ask me this question? He began to use all his flexibility and brain power to think, but don't panic, he got it, in this situation. As soon as he thought of it, he immediately responded, in this situation, I would reduce the tuition fees. Then, he started explaining why he chose this solution. Around here there are many businesses. Most customers are office workers in their 30s to early 40s. Most of their money comes from their wives, so of course, they are very sensitive about prices, right? So-man was extremely surprised by DSEO's calculation skills. He then pointed out a tricky problem in his plan. But reducing tuition fees isn't easy, because that would reduce our profits as well, so we have to compensate for that loss. DSEO quickly replied, by selling baseball equipment over there. So-man immediately agreed to this brilliant suggestion. That's good, I was thinking the same thing. DSEO, are you really Di-chang's younger brother? I didn't expect you to be so sharp, the young man modestly replied, thank you very much. Director So-man smiled and encouraged him, alright, let's work hard together, DSEO. He also cheerfully responded, I look forward to working with you for a long time. And just like that, with one interview, DSEO easily landed a new job. At that time, I didn't know that, in the 9th inning, with 2 outs in my baseball life, a spectacular home run would unexpectedly appear. DSEO with his dashing appearance, and a smile that melted the hearts of many fans. After the interview, DSEO left, but his mind couldn't stop thinking about it. The coach at the baseball training center, baseball superstar. The hourly wage wasn't much, but selling equipment would get half the commission, so it wasn't too bad, even though this was just clearance stock, just 1 year, yes, just work hard for 1 year. And I could freely follow the gambling path without needing Dad's help. As soon as he got home, he greeted, I'm home. then immediately enjoyed a steaming hot bowl of noodles. Older brother Di-chang happily walked into the room and asked, "Dseo, you're back?" He responded while chewing, "Oh, you just got home too." Di-chang approached and mockingly asked, "So, did they tell you to leave because you're from Qingdao?" Dseo smirked and replied, "What are you talking about? I'm starting work tomorrow, from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. After hearing that, the older brother seemed a bit worried. "Looks tougher than I thought." Dseo confidently said, "No matter how hard it is, I'll do it." The older brother laughed and said, "This kid, are you trying to show off to me? Let me buy you something." While talking, he noticed something familiar on the table. Looking closely, Di-chang was shocked. "Wait, what's this?" "This is a limited edition 2023 Tabota Luger glove, from the player Muare." Dseo irritably reminded him, "Don't touch it, I'm using it to break it in." The brother thought he misheard and asked again, "What, break it in?" Di-chang angrily scolded and hit his younger brother repeatedly. "You crazy kid, are you insane?" "I bet you are." Dseo blocked the hits and furiously responded, "You're the crazy one." The older brother put on a serious face and said, "Maybe I don't play baseball, but having a brother who's a player means I have to know a little. That glove is worth more than $1,000,000. Do you think I can stay calm after seeing it? You just started and brought home $1,000,001 glove. Tell me, where did you get the money from?" Dseo started feeling overwhelmed. He sighed and advised, "Calm down, brother. When I was active, I used a 300,000 glove. Now I'm using $1,000,001 glove. What's so strange about that?" Di-chang scratched his head and thought, "Well, that's true." Then he changed the subject and asked, "So what are you going to do with that glove?" Dseo picked up the glove and told him about his plan. "I'm planning to sell it to a member at the center for about 1.5 million won." After hearing the price, Di-chang nearly fainted. "What, 1.5 million? Are you insane? You bought that glove online for 900,000 won with a discount. How are you going to sell it for 1.5 million? Seeing that, Dseo made a bet. "Want to bet with me?" His face showed confidence. "Just wait and see if I can sell it for 1.5 million or not." Today was Dseo's first day at work. In the room, a young man approached and called, "Coach Dseo." He responded warmly, "Coach Han." The guy curiously asked, "I heard from the director that you're planning to sell that Tabota glove." Without hesitation, he replied, "Yes, the director promised me a generous commission." Han sighed and reminded him, "Being enthusiastic is good when you're new, but don't overdo it." Dseo seriously asked, "What do you mean?" Inside he wondered, "What's this? Is he looking down on me?" Luckily, thanks to his mind-reading ability, he could easily figure out what Coach Han was thinking. This Qingdao kid, if he's not careful, he'll lose big time with that glove. Turns out that wasn't what he meant. Seeing him standing there silently, Dseo had to ask again, "What do you mean by don't overdo it?" Han scratched his head and asked for confirmation. "It's about that glove. You plan to sell it to Mr. Ungmin, who's coming at 7 o'clock, right?" "That's right, Chairman Ungmin, a big player in the business of renting out large studio apartments, and known as a rich man in the center." Dseo seemed to have researched this client of his very thoroughly. He often collects baseball gear, and he already has an impressive collection. Coach Han revealed some important information. "From what I know, Mr. Ungmin loves watching top-level matches, but the main issue is he never buys the gear we sell." Dseo asked in confusion, "Why is that?" Han enthusiastically explained, "Because nothing here meets his standards. Everything he uses is gear that has been used by official league players, even down to his bat and ball. And his socks are similar too. Do you think anything from our center will catch his eye? That's why I already told the director, it's not gonna work. I really appreciate your advice." Dseo smiled confidently and responded, "Just let me try my way first." Coach Han helplessly thought, "I've seen so many people fail before." He looked straight at him and smiled brightly, thinking to himself, "Coach Han, I know what you're thinking." Outside the practice field, after preparing everything, Dseo called out, "Everyone, let's gather around." He began to explain today's lesson to the students. "We'll be practicing defense on the field. After the ball hits the bat from the coaches, all you have to do is catch the ball and throw it with all your strength into that net clear." Chairman Ungmin stood outside and complained, "Why do I feel so off today?" Director So-man could only say, "Maybe it's just your imagination." Seeing the opportunity, Dseo started approaching Chairman Ungmin. When he arrived, he smiled and called out, "Mr. Ungmin." The man pretended to be surprised and replied, "Coach Dseo." He kindly asked him, "Are you not feeling well today? I saw you missed a few balls." Ungmin laughed and responded, "Really, maybe I've gained some weight." Then he put on his gloves and asked him to go easy on him. Dseo put on a serious face and said, "That might be part of it, but I think you should consider changing gloves." Today I'll let you borrow. Before he could finish, the man interrupted in an annoyed tone, Coach DCO. You've disappointed me. Didn't you hear what Coach Han said? I never touch gear that's not top-notch, yet you still offer me stuff. Even though he was criticized directly, DSCO boldly responded, Min. Did I say I was going to sell it to you? I only said I would let you borrow it today, right? The man, caught off guard, stammered, Not stopping there, DSCO boldly declared, furthermore, if you think about it carefully, this Tabota glove is worth more than your gloves. Chairman Min's face turned red with anger. Being disrespected by a mere coach for the first time, what did you just say? Are you trying to mess with me? Do you know what kind of gloves I'm using? He sneered, I bet you don't. These are. DSCO showed his knowledge and interrupted, I know, and I also know their owner very well. These are the gloves of the best catcher in the official baseball league, Samo in the 2021 season. Min was so upset that his face darkened, while people around him kept praising him, saying Coach DSCO is amazing, but his gloves didn't seem much different from other pairs. To avoid embarrassment, he continued telling him, you already know, that's right, these are Samo's gloves, and yet you still claim this Tabota pair is better? Everything seemed to be going according to DSCO's plan. The next step was to manipulate him psychologically, challenging him. If you want to know why I said that, why not try catching with it? Being well versed in baseball, I believe you'll understand immediately. Challenged like that, Min immediately agreed to his suggestion. Fine, but it's definitely worse than my pair, and if I'm wrong, I won't come to this center again. It's as if this Tabota pair is better than the gloves of a professional player. DSCO put all his strength into the bat, and struck it powerfully. Min was astonished, surprised that he could catch the ball so easily. After catching the ball, he jumped up in joy. What's this? It felt as if the ball just slipped into the gloves by itself. Min stood still, staring at the ball snug in his palm with a face full of astonishment. He immediately changed his attitude, smiling with delight, thinking to himself, I want these gloves. In the Baseball Superstar Lounge, someone excitedly asked, Coach Kim, can I touch those gloves for a moment? Someone else said, Hey buddy, let me go first. At that moment, Chairman Choi patted him on the shoulder and said, Hey, Coach Kim. Why are you being so elusive, I'm so annoyed I'm about to explode here, at least explain a bit. He praised, these gloves catch better than the ones used in official tournaments. Where did you find them? DSCO smiled, thinking, everyone's gone crazy over these gloves. After a few days of observation, I've come to a conclusion. The desire to win is the same for both professional players and amateur baseball enthusiasts. They want to play well, want to become a starting player, want to be the fourth batter, but that doesn't necessarily mean more practice. Everyone has to train anyway. Just thinking about it makes me tired. He closed his eyes, continuing to calculate, but since everyone has to work to make a living, it's not easy to find time for that, so wanting good equipment is only natural. Once this issue is resolved, there will be a long line of people waiting to buy my gloves. Then DSCO spoke, why is it easier to catch with these gloves? It's simple. Because these gloves have been customized to suit Chairman Choi's playing style, it's a specially tailored glove. He asked, somewhat suspicious, Coach Kim, are you joking with me? Do you think I've been playing baseball for so many years and have never had a custom glove made? I even went to Japan to have one specially ordered. He smiled at an annoyed Min, then replied, how can you compare it with a glove that's only customized by measuring hand size? I told you, my gloves are made with Chairman Choi's playing style in mind. Then he asked, are you actually scared? Scared the ball will hit the ground in the infield? If I'm not mistaken, you were hit in the face by a grounder while defending the infield, right? He blushed with embarrassment. How did you know? DSCO replied, I'm pretty observant, I can tell just by looking. People with psychological injuries like Chairman Choi find it hard to watch the ball until the last moment. Because at that moment, they will tightly close their eyes. So, I customized the gloves to accommodate that. He was inwardly amazed. This is incredible. I've never seen gloves customized like this before. People were thinking, he spotted Chairman Choi's weakness after just a glance. Then he said, well, that's all cleared up. While putting the gloves away, Chairman Choi was surprised. Hey, Coach Kim, why are you putting the gloves away? Not going to sell them to me? DSCO nonchalantly replied, what do you mean? I already told you, I'm just lending them. He came closer, putting his arm around him, and said, there you go again, that's the pair you customized for me. How can you not sell them to me? He responded, that's right, but seems like you're haggling over the price. Hearing that, Min felt guilty, stunned that he had guessed it. How did he know? This is a customized pair for me, so I was planning to lower the price a bit. he continued. I'm just a baseball player who doesn't know how to bargain. If I negotiate with you, I'll definitely lose out. I don't want to sell something I've invested so much effort and skill in like this, he asked, flustered. So what are you going to do with the gloves? Not sell them to anyone? No, DSCO replied. Why would I? I'll customize them to fit someone else's style and sell them instead. Hearing that, people were happy and said, Coach Kim, let me have them. I've been having trouble with defense lately. Another guy chimed in. You're good at defense, Coach Kim. I just got my bonus. I can pay right away. Then a player stepped forward and said, I'll pay $300 above the base price. $1.3 million. Of course, the crowd didn't want to lose out, constantly bidding higher. I'll pay $1.4 million. Why are you all so competitive? I'll pay $1.5 million. Chairman Choi, seeing the gloves customized for him about to be bought by someone else, looked panicked. Then he said $2 million. DSCO, a bit surprised, asked, Chairman Choi, are you okay? Thinking to himself, that's quite a bit of money. He turned red with anger. Trying to mess with me, huh? Stop making me anxious, friend. He laughed and replied, I got it. The Tabota gloves, limited edition, were sold for $2 million won. Holding them in his hands, he smiled with joy. That evening at a restaurant, Coach Han said, and so? Coach Kim sold those gloves for $2 million won. Di-chang was surprised. DSCO? He continued, that's not all. After that, many members lined up to buy Coach Kim's custom gloves, to the point that the entire stock was sold out. He laughed and replied, I told you, that guy DSCO is just a bit unlucky in his career, but he's really talented. Coach Han added, that's true, but I'm not sure we should let Coach Kim stay in a place like this. Di-chang didn't quite get it. What do you mean? I've been in amateur baseball for quite a while now. Your brother, he's the most knowledgeable about baseball of anyone I've ever met. Don't you think his ability to read people is extraordinary? Then he asked, is your brother planning to work for a professional team? He replied, I did ask him. But that kid said he wouldn't work for less than 100 million won. Coach Han was stunned. 100 million? Di-chang laughed. He's retired, there's no way he'll get paid 100 million. It's basically working for free, he said disappointedly. But you should try persuading him again. It would be a shame otherwise, he answered, I'll try. A little while later, his phone rang. Yes, baseball superstar here. Private lessons? Of course, that's possible. What's the student's name? Please hold on. Who? Not sure what he heard, but Coach Han was shocked and asked, you just said. Who will be coming to our training ground? Meanwhile, DSCO was engrossed in playing a baseball game on his phone. It's a home run. The player lost control right after. DSCO and Coach Han were walking together. He asked, Coach Kim, how does it feel to get your first paycheck? After selling all that equipment, you probably got a huge bonus from the chairman. Want to go eat some grilled beef? He replied, I was planning to buy 2 fried chickens to eat with my family. He was surprised. What, just that? He said, the money is a lot, but there's so much the family needs to spend on. Anyone who's a former baseball player will definitely go through this at least once, me included. What the family used to support, now I have to handle it all myself, and if you've lived abroad, the costs are even more overwhelming. He shared, when I was still competing, I didn't pay attention to such things. I just let my parents or wife handle the money. Only when something required my involvement did I open my eyes. But if you spend all your first paycheck, don't be sad, October is coming soon. At that time, the fall baseball season is here. DSCO was excited. Has it already arrived? He said, when fall comes, the demand for baseball increases. Amateur baseball finals, short-term leagues, corporate baseball leagues, even some company employees have signed up for private lessons. This is the last peak season for amateur baseball. Let's make some money and go eat some beef. You thought to yourself, he really loves beef. The two returned to the training field, chatting while walking. What should we eat tonight? Still haven't thought about it. When they opened the door and stepped inside, Coach Han felt something was odd. He asked, why is the atmosphere like this? At this time, everyone was enthusiastically discussing something. Then DSCO asked, Chairman Choi, is something going on? He turned around, Coach Kim. You asked more clearly. Has something happened at the training field? Why isn't anyone practicing? He pointed in a direction and said, baseball is no longer the issue now. There, look in the consulting room, director. Next to him was a gentleman. Then you casually asked, who is that? Min excitedly said, hey, Coach Kim, you don't know him. You honestly replied, no, is he famous? He said, of course he's famous, though he hasn't appeared much recently. But back in the day, he was in the news quite a lot. Not only in the press but there were also TV dramas where he was the main character. DSCO still couldn't picture it and said TV dramas, so he's an actor, making him exasperated. You don't follow the entertainment industry. All you know is baseball. Do you know KH Corporation? He's the vice chairman, Baek Hong-chu, of that corporation. You thought to yourself, vice chairman. He replied yes, but from the past until now, his real name isn't as famous as his nickname, Salin. Min elaborated. Baek Salin. In the 90s, KH Corporation once faced the risk of collapse. A Russian business partner delayed payments. Stock prices plummeted, and there were rumors that the chairman had to sell his house. But Baek Hong-chu, he handled everything by himself. How did he manage it? Baek Hong-chu flew to Salin and met with the Russian president, who was touring the area for negotiations. Russia is known as a big country, but their actions were no better than those of smaller countries. Just for a few pennies, they were willing to lose trust with a partner, so who would dare to work with Russia anymore? KH will never forget this, even after hundreds or thousands of years. It sounds brave, but you could also call it reckless. But the Russian president was impressed by Baek Hong-chu's actions, and as a result, thanks to the Russian president's directives, KH Corporation overcame the biggest crisis since its founding. That's the story. And KH Corporation's professional baseball team is KH Cannons, and the nickname Baek Salin came from him bringing back cutting-edge weapons from Russia instead of payments. After hearing this, DSCO wondered, why would such a great man visit this old training ground? At this time, inside the consulting room, Hong-chu was angrily saying, so in the end, what is it? You're not going to teach me baseball, are you? Everyone outside was reading his lips and guessing, what, baseball? Did he just say baseball? Baek Salin, playing baseball. A guy spoke up, he's playing baseball but chose such a small field. But he could easily hire professional players to teach him, right? Then he stormed out. What a waste of time. Director Soman chased after him wanting to explain, I'm sorry, Vice Chairman, to clarify further would be. But Hong-chu interrupted, what more do you want to clarify? At my age, you can just search online for everything. Do you not use your brain before speaking? He yelled, your place accepts 60-year-olds but won't take 70-year-olds. What kind of ridiculous rules are those? And then you treat me like some useless old man. Then he suddenly turned and asked someone, hey you there, tell me. Do you think I shouldn't play baseball? The man was shocked and nervously replied, me. DSCO stood silently observing for a while, thinking, he's got quite the temper. At this moment, someone whispered, did he just say 70 years old? He doesn't look it at all. Baek Hong-chu thought to himself, damn it, this is so awkward. I've used all my connections and checked every training ground in Seoul, but I still couldn't find a coach willing to teach baseball. What should I do now? At this point, DSCO overheard his thoughts. Thinking this, Hong-chu suddenly met his observing gaze, and he asked, hey you there. Do you have something to say to me? If not, why are you staring at me like that? DSCO didn't immediately respond but continued looking before slowly speaking, Vice Chairman. Why are you making everything so complicated? He was surprised, not understanding what he meant. What did you just say? He repeated, I asked why you are making everything so difficult. Hearing him speak like that in front of the Vice Chairman, everyone was stunned. Then someone tried to intervene. Wait a minute, Coach Kim. But he raised his hand, signaling for silence. Then he said, you said I'm making things more complicated. DSCO calmly replied, isn't that the case? You keep shouting that people over 70 can't play baseball. But that's the reality. He calmly explained, as age increases, reflexes slow down, and slower reflexes can lead to dangerous situations while playing baseball. Hearing this, the Vice Chairman, now agitated, said, only old folks in nursing homes are like that. I'm different. No one maintains their health like I do. Even doctors say my body's age is mid-50s. How could you say I can't play baseball? That's absurd, DSCO replied. That's exactly what I wanted to say. How could baseball professionals like us not know whether you are someone who exercises regularly? Playing 1 or 2 games of baseball isn't a problem, he wondered then why. DSCO extended his hand forward and continued, you are a very distinguished person, Vice Chairman. He pointed to himself, surprised, distinguished me. He thought to himself, doesn't he realize how important he is? If the Vice Chairman brought a doctor he knows with him, things would be much simpler. Or at least brought a medical certificate allowing him to play baseball. If we just teach him based on his words, what if he gets hurt? We could lose our lives at any time. He shouted, young man, I'm extremely busy. I don't have time. Making such a big fuss over one baseball game, DSCO said, just one baseball game. Who's really making a big fuss just because they can't play one baseball game? Isn't it you? The comment left Hong-chu speechless. What? Meanwhile, Coach Han was holding his head in despair. We're done for. From today we might have to shut down the training center. Then he suddenly asked, Secretary Dang, are you there? The man replied, yes, Vice Chairman. Get that guy's contact information. Hearing this, Duaseo was surprised, eyes wide open. He turned and said, I'm sure I'll need to meet you again. After Vice Chairman Beck left, Coach Han said, Coach Kim, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. Director Soman also asked Coach Kim, are you really the brother of Kim Di-chang? How can the brother of that guy be so brave like this? You said, Director, tell me, why did Vice Chairman Beck Hongchu come here? Vice Chairman Beck Hongchu came here. He slapped his forehead and replied, it's because of KH Corporation's internal baseball tournament, happening next week. You wondered, isn't this tournament just for employees? This year there's an order that even directors must participate. Is that why he was so angry? Coach Han also felt confused. Couldn't Vice Chairman Beck Hongchu handle this easily? Soman answered, Coach Han, didn't you see what he did today? How are you still unclear? He's not someone who easily rejects such things. According to Secretary Dang, initially, he intended to reach out to a famous coach he had known before, but no one was willing to accept. Duaseo continued, so he searched everywhere and finally came to our training center. He said, actually, in my opinion, it's probably not just because of his age but also due to his difficult personality. Then Han asked, Coach Kim, Secretary Dang has already contacted you, right? You answered yes. As expected, they wanted me to provide private training for him. The medical certificate has also been submitted, and if I want, they're even willing to bring a doctor to every session, he asked, so have you agreed yet? Duaseo scratched his face. I don't see any reason to refuse. There's only one thing, he asked me to be flexible with the training schedule. They both asked, flexible with the schedule? You said Vice President Beck Hongchu is an extremely busy person, so it's impossible to set a fixed schedule for the training sessions. He said he'd contact me when he has time and wants me to be ready to hit the field at that moment. Soman rested his chin on his hand. With the rank of Vice President Beck, making such requests seems reasonable. So for the next 10 days, Coach Kim temporarily canceled the schedule for other classes. You were surprised, is that okay? He responded, it's fine. Coincidentally, we also have a candidate interviewing for a job. Stopping a training session midway to take a call isn't very appropriate, is it? Plus, 20% of the training session goes to me, so it's worth it. Upon hearing that, Coach Han quickly chimed in, Director O, in that case, why don't you treat us to a meal? Coach Kim has brought in a profitable contract for you, so how about treating us to some Korean beef? Soman sighed. Stop talking nonsense, Coach Han. Then he suddenly asked, Coach Kim, let me ask you seriously, are you thinking about leaving the training center for private coaching? Duaseo feigned surprise. What? How could that be? While thinking to himself, this guy is sharp. That evening you returned home and thought, Secretary Dang said we could start the first training session tomorrow morning. How should I plan for this? The uncles at this center tend to complain about every little thing when they get tired. You recalled their words, Coach Kim. Are you trying to work us to death? I can't take it anymore. I can't teach an elderly man that way. Today's the first day, so just a gentle ball passing will do, a perfect plan. After finishing the plan, you got into bed and quickly fell asleep. Near dawn, while still sound asleep, Duaseo was suddenly awakened by the ringing of his phone. You picked up the phone to check, an unknown number was calling? Then sluggishly answered, yes, this is Kim Duaseo speaking, who's calling? The voice on the other end said, still sleeping at this hour? With that kind of spirit, how do you plan to teach me? You asked in surprise, is this Vice President Beck Hongchu? He said, didn't Secretary Dang tell you beforehand? I clearly said we'd be training this morning. You replied, I did hear about that. Then you checked the time on your phone. But it's only 4 in the morning. Hongchu retorted, and isn't that morning? It's been morning for 4 hours. I'm standing in front of your house, get ready and come out now. Duaseo clenched the plan in his hand, thinking, Vice President, you've played your card, but starting tomorrow, you won't be able to call me at this ungodly hour anymore. I'll make you regret it with an intense workout. 32 years old, Duaseo's life, there was no one left he could call a close friend. He had a few when he was younger. But ever since he developed the ability to read others' thoughts, those friends gradually drifted away. He recalled the time when he failed to make the professional baseball team. A friend consoled him with a sanctimonious tone, Duaseo, don't feel bad, not making the professional team doesn't mean your baseball career is over. But inside, he was mocking, serves you right for always acting so cool. Hearing that, you frowned and questioned him, are you saying that without shame? You actually think it's all over, don't you? He stammered back in panic, What are you talking about? The friends who were once close slowly distanced themselves from him, but conversely, people's opinions of DSEO changed. Once, after reading his coach's thoughts, he couldn't help but ask, "Coach, do you have something to be happy about today?" Hearing that, the coach rubbed his head and laughed loudly. "Really, is it that obvious? Actually, yesterday my child won a prize in a drawing contest." DSEO smiled and responded, "Congratulations, that's impressive." The coach continued, "Our team hasn't been doing well, so I didn't feel like bragging, but you picked up on it anyway." An athlete with the best relationships with everyone. With that title, DSEO maintained his athletic career for over 10 years. So this time, he was very confident. He thought to himself, "Mr. Beck-Solin is a difficult person, but I can probably handle him, just like I've always done. Everything will go smoothly." But the outcome was, he made you run alongside him. He ran ahead, not caring that you were panting behind. While running, he urged, "Hey rookie, can you pick up the pace a bit?" Mr. Beck-Solin was even more of a tough opponent. Despite being over 70 years old, his involvement in managing KH Group didn't seem to be just a rumor. What kind of old man has that kind of stamina? He kept urging, "Hey rookie, run faster." The next day, early in the morning, he called again. His commanding voice rang from the other end. "This is the second time, and you still haven't learned. I told you to be outside at 4 a.m. sharp. While putting on your shoes, you responded, 'I'm already getting my shoes on, heading out now.' No matter how much you increase the intensity of the workout, he still called precisely at 4 a.m. the next day. Secondly, this old man keeps questioning my training methods." At that moment, he pointed at you angrily and asked, "Hey rookie, why do you keep throwing AI ring balls? Practicing those won't improve anything." The secretary behind couldn't hold back and spoke up, "Vice President, I've left all the training entirely to Coach Kim." Hearing that, you silently thanked him. "Thanks, Secretary Dang." But the vice president didn't care and stubbornly said, "If you're just going through the motions, drop it. I used to play baseball for Dongsan School and participated in the Chongrong competition." You slightly frowned and responded, "And you were also the first executive of the Canon team, right?" "Yes, I've heard it 100 times, Vice President." Actually, you didn't need to say anything. With his natural physical abilities and attention to detail, not overlooking anything, it made sense for him to become the vice president. But what shocked you the most was, he suddenly said, "Rookie, after training, let's grab a meal together. Having breakfast at the KH Hotel after practice is my habit. Come with me." Hearing that, you couldn't help but think, KH Hotel, that's definitely something a vice president would say. After the offer of a luxurious breakfast at the hotel, after finishing the meal, you couldn't believe it and said, "Vice President." In your hand was a bill with an amount you never imagined. You gloomily said, "Did you just say it's on me?" He's stingy to the point of splitting the bill. He casually replied, "Who else but you?" You responded with a frustrated face. But it was the vice president who suggested eating. Hearing that, he flared up and loudly retorted, "Rookie, what have you done to deserve a meal on me?" You handed your card to the employee, while looking at him helplessly and thinking, "It's been a while since I've met someone whose outside matches their inside so perfectly." Maybe Mr. Beck-Solin is the worst client DSEO has ever had, but it seemed like he still had a bit of conscience. After a hit, he silently watched the ball slowly fly off into the distance for a moment, and then said to you, "Hey rookie, be free tonight, have dinner with me." Hearing that, you didn't say anything, just silently looked at him for a moment. Scene change. At your house, the excited voice of Di-Chang rang out, "You're having dinner with the vice president tonight. That place is a Michelin 3-star restaurant, top-notch. Finally, my brother has made it." While adjusting your suit jacket, you mumbled, "Made it. It's just paying back what I spent on that hotel meal." On the way to the restaurant, you kept thinking, "But suddenly I felt a bit worried. Mr. Beck-Solin isn't the kind of person who would have an expensive meal for no reason." And I guess he reminded, "Look here, don't miss any details." Exactly as you predicted, no meal ever falls from the sky. He made you watch a special documentary about the KH Corporation, 40 years of KH's innovation and development. You frowned helplessly as you watched the documentary, while he sat next to you rambling nonstop. "Look there. Do you know who the person holding the cue standing next to Chairman Chu is?" The documentary about KH lasted a full hour and 40 minutes. Of course, it also couldn't lack Vice Chairman Bak's memoirs that no one asked for. At this point, you were so angry that you were trembling, thinking gloomily, "I'm so hungry." But that vice chairman is just enthusiastically talking nonstop there. "Look, that's the King of Saudi Arabia and Chairman Chu, and the one standing next to him is me." You were annoyed hearing him talk while your stomach growled, feeling extremely anxious, wondering when you'd finally get to eat. After a while, the food was finally served, and you looked at the dishes before you, unable to hold back your happiness, thinking, finally, the food's here. But just as you were about to eat, the person in front of you suddenly fell asleep. Secretary Deng tried to explain, he's not usually like this. It seems like the vice chairman has been extremely tired lately. You politely replied, that's understandable. Then you thought to yourself, for a man in his 70s to endure week-long training sessions, it's hard to tell if it's perseverance or stubbornness. Thinking of this, you stood up, helped him up, and said, well, Chairman, you can't eat anymore, let's take him home. Vice Chairman, sorry to trouble you, please stand up. Suddenly he called you out. Tan Dao. Then he said, I must do well in this baseball tournament, I need to teach that brat Choi Danan a lesson. You heard this and silently noted the name, Chu Danan. On the way back. In the car you suddenly asked Secretary Deng, thank you so much, but instead of taking me home, shouldn't you be staying close to the vice chairman? While driving, he replied, a secretary isn't always with someone 24/7, I've arranged for someone else to take care of the vice chairman. Besides, Coach Kim has to train the vice chairman early tomorrow morning. You curiously asked again, the vice chairman is still going to train? He seemed completely exhausted today. He calmly replied, just bet on it, he'll be back tomorrow. You heard this and silently pondered, actually, I've had a bad feeling for a while, something doesn't seem right. A man over 70, why is he so obsessed with baseball? The things he said before leaving the restaurant also left you feeling uneasy. Thinking about this, you called out, Secretary Deng. He quickly responded, go ahead. So you continued earlier, did you hear the vice chairman mention someone named Chu Danan and said he needed to teach her a lesson? Hearing your words, he immediately turned around, stuttering, Chu Danan? You replied yes, and then asked, who is she, and why does he say he needs to teach her a lesson at an internal baseball tournament? Secretary Yang spoke up, Chairman Chu Danan is the only daughter of the late chairman. She is now the leader of the KH Corporation. Hearing this, you couldn't help but feel shocked. That old Bak Salin and the daughter of the late chairman. It seems like something is going on between them, but why baseball? What's the conflict with the current chairman, and how does baseball play into it? Secretary Deng continued, Coach Kim, all I can say is, the KH Corporation's internal baseball tournament is an extremely important event. The late chairman always participated in the baseball tournament alongside the vice chairman. The scene shifts to the next day's training session. You looked at the pile of baseballs on the ground, then back at the old man in front of you, thinking to yourself, this old man is incredibly stubborn. He fell asleep yesterday but still called at exactly 4 in the morning today. He suddenly frowned and looked at you. Then called out, hey Tan Dao. You startled and replied yes. He asked, did Secretary Deng say I was talking nonsense yesterday? Then he continued to question, why didn't you ask me directly? Normally, with your personality, when we met this evening, you would have already asked me in detail about what I said yesterday, right? You were silent for a moment. Then said, it's just that I've already figured out most of the vice chairman's situation, that's all. He exclaimed in surprise, what? You've heard about those things already? You turned to him and seriously said, it's time for you to step down from your management position. He asked, did Secretary Deng tell you that? You replied, the vice chairman knows better than anyone how tight-lipped Secretary Deng is. He continued to question, then how do you know? You quietly responded, actually, 90% of it I read from Secretary Deng's thoughts, and the remaining 10%. Thinking about it, you finally spoke, the vice chairman knows I used to play baseball in China, right? But think about it in the country. Was it because I liked China first? He hesitated, probably not. You continued, after failing to join the professional league, I first went to Japan, then the US, and after that Korea. But when no one accepted me, I went to China. Saying this, you sighed and continued, but in the end, I was kicked out of there too. He asked in confusion, what do you mean? You replied calmly, I'm younger than the chairman, but I've been kicked out of organizations more times than you. So I understand how it feels to be pushed to the edge, labeled as useless, and have to rely on charity to survive. Hearing this, he crossed his arms and looked at you for a long time. Then he chuckled and said, a person who has been kicked out everywhere like you understands my heart? Then he suddenly asked, hey Tan Dao, why did you play baseball? You were startled and asked back, what? He continued, you could do so many other things better. You countered, no, actually, baseball is the thing I'm best at, he said again, pretending to be modest. Then he started to say, after the internal baseball tournament rules were announced, Chu Danan, no, I should call her chairman of the KH Corporation now, right? Send me a suit, you asked in surprise, a suit? He continued, The secretary who brought the suit said that Chairman Du Danan was very worried about me. After all, I'm old, my health isn't what it used to be, and participating in the tournament would be too much. She doesn't know much about baseball, but if I wore this suit and sat beside her to explain the rules, that would be great. At first, I thought it was just a normal thing, but it turns out it wasn't just me. Everyone who had served the late Chairman Du Tae-san also received a similar message. Hearing this, you silently thought, if they wear the suit that Du Danan sent, it means agreeing to step down from the management position. On the other hand, if they wear the uniform and participate in the tournament, it means defying that order. Thinking this, you couldn't help but exclaim, so, this isn't just a friendly baseball tournament. Now I understand why Vice Chairman Baek is so obsessed with baseball. Suddenly, he called out again, "Hey Tan Dao," you replied, "Yes, sir." He frowned and said in annoyance, "Don't you know anything about human decency? I'm an old man who's opened up and started talking to you. You should know to ask more questions. Why don't you ask me why I take baseball so seriously? Why I don't want to step down from management?" You found his persistence annoying and thought, this old man is really troublesome. Thinking this, you decisively said, "Well, I already know everything, so why waste time asking?" He asked in surprise, "What? You know everything already?" You replied, "After all, I watched the documentary carefully last night." He frowned and looked at you in disbelief. Last night, while he was watching, he was laughing and commenting loudly, "Yes, that's how it was back then." He kept rambling on like that. You sat beside him, your face dark, trembling, thinking, my ears are about to bleed, how can he talk so much? Just when he was getting excited, he suddenly fell silent. You looked at him in confusion, wondering, why did he suddenly stop? But then the voice from the projector echoed, "The goal." "What is the goal?" Vice Chairman Baek stood frozen, watching the man on the screen cheerfully answer the interview. "When we founded the company, this man and I set a goal." Then he happily put his arm around Vice Chairman Baek standing beside him and continued, "Always, we must create a company that ranks in the top 10 largest corporations in Korea. To make it to the top 10 and be invited to a dinner at the Blue House just once. I heard the food at the Blue House is delicious." The voice in the video continued, "Thank you for the interview. So let's see what the future holds for the KH Corporation." Seeing this, he unconsciously smiled lightly. At this moment, he laughed loudly and said, "That kid." Then he called out again, "Secretary Dang, come here." Hearing the vice chairman call his name, he quickly responded, "Yes, Vice Chairman." He directly asked, "Qingdao is just a private study session scheduled, right? The player who will go on the field for the tournament will be someone else, right?" He replied, "Yes, I have prepared a former KBO player, a batting champion, for you." He decisively said, "Cancel him." Secretary Dang was in disbelief and asked again, "What?" He turned to you and said, "For this baseball tournament, I will take him along." Time passed, and after the final practice, the day of the KH Group's internal baseball tournament arrived. You confidently cheered, "Vice President, hit a home run today." He put his hands on his hips and replied, "Kid, do you think it's that easy?" His words left you speechless, and you silently thought, this annoying old man, how irritating. Suddenly, Secretary Dang came over and said, "Coach Kim, I have something for you." You took the item from the bag and, surprised, said, "This is the KH Canon uniform." He added, "After all, it's a company tournament, and this is the same type of uniform that professional players wear." All the other staff members were also given a set to cheer in. Back when Canon was still famous, the entire staff had to wear this uniform to cheer. Then he urged again, "Hurry up and get changed." You took it and replied, "Yes." After putting on the cap, you silently reflected the feeling. It's strange. Looking at yourself in the mirror, you couldn't help but think, no matter how hard I tried when I was competing, I could never get a KBO team uniform. Yet now, I can easily wear it like this. Life is truly funny and also heartbreaking. Suddenly, a hand slapped your shoulder, calling out, "Hey, Qingdao." It was Vice President Baek. He smiled and said, "Wearing the uniform makes you look quite sharp, doesn't it?" You were surprised and called out, "Vice President." Then you cautiously asked, "Why are you complimenting me today?" He gruffly replied, "Kid, what kind of attitude is that when someone compliments you?" Then he continued, "Hey, there's a guy named Choi Dong-ky. He's been my junior for 4 years and is now the strategy director of the company. I just called him, and he said he'll wear the uniform and come out on the field today." You were stunned and said, "Wearing the uniform means?" He finished the sentence, "It means he's aligned with me." After Choi Dong-ky's call, calls from other directors followed, as if they had planned it. Watching the vice president's face wrinkle with each call, I could easily guess the content of the conversations. After finishing a call, he excitedly said, "If I had known, I would have invited those guys to play baseball with you, Qingdao." This usually strict old man seemed a bit softened after talking with the directors. Somehow, it feels like things won't go so smoothly. As soon as they arrived, a man came to greet them. "Vice President, you're here. Please follow me." He responded cheerfully, "All right, let's go." The man said, "This way, everyone is already gathered." He happily asked, "Really? Has Choi Dong-Ky arrived too?" Then he smiled broadly and continued, "If they hear about what I've practiced, I'm sure they'll be surprised." But upon seeing the scene behind the door, his smile immediately froze. At that moment I saw it. A man who once negotiated with the Russian president and saved the company from a crisis. A legendary figure of a bygone era. Now shrinking into a weak 70-year-old man. Hongchu seemed to be facing many unfavorable issues within the company, staring blankly into the corner of the room. Manager Choi, equally concerned, tried to ask, "Vice President, what's going on?" But his father only said, "Very good." Then he patted Manager Choi's shoulder reassuringly. Manager Choi must have thought long and hard to make this decision. There's no need for meaningless actions like that anymore. He brushed past the two standing beside him. "Let's go, staying here any longer will only make the atmosphere worse." As they reached the door, they overheard a woman's voice. "Is everyone already gathered?" "Welcome, Chairman." The woman with a mole near her mouth was Danan, and she spoke with authority. From DSCO's understanding, this woman was Chu Danan, the leader representing the KH group. She was surrounded by many others, all fawning over her. "Chairman, are you feeling better today? The suit you sent fits perfectly. I'll keep it safe and pass it down to my son." In DSCO's eyes, this display of flattery changed his view of her. It's all just sweet talk, but flattery isn't necessarily bad. After all, for someone in her position at a large corporation, if you're going to flatter, do it properly. It turned out to be just his own illusions. Seeing such talented people bowing like that made him wonder if anyone had once intended to follow Salim. The more he thought about it, the stranger it felt. If that's the case, why did they say they'd wear the uniform? What will that old man do when the situation changes like this? At the same time, Danan approached his father, Vice President Baek Hongchu, right? He was forced to maintain a respectful attitude in front of her, so Hongchu bowed his head and greeted her. "Long time no see, Chairman." Danan took off her sunglasses and exchanged a few polite words. "How have you been lately?" At that moment, she noticed Hongchu's expression, along with the baseball team jacket he was wearing. Without saying a word, she turned away and said, "Let's go, you like baseball, right?" The three of them left, and Secretary Dang offered to take Hongchu home. Then he turned to DSCO and said, "His complexion doesn't look good. Today it's better to let the Vice President rest and think about what's next." Then came a plea from him. "Coach Kim, help me out here. You should at least say a few words for the Vice President." Once again DSCO was troubled by many inner thoughts. Today, the Vice President cannot participate in this match. He should go home and rest. That's probably what Secretary Dang wants, but Faced with this, DSCO did not hesitate and said to Hongchu, "Vice President, let's go warm up now. The weather is a bit cold today, but even if you're on the bench, you should prepare thoroughly." Secretary Dang was momentarily bewildered. "No, Coach Kim, what are you saying now?" DSCO interrupted him, saying, "I've seen it all. How could I not understand? It's clear that the other directors have betrayed you. From the start, you intended to do everything alone, didn't you, Vice President?" Hearing this, Secretary Dang grew even more fearful, scared of being reprimanded, and worried about the Vice President's worsening condition. However, DSCO spoke all his thoughts. "When you came to the training ground, you were alone, signing contracts, alone, and training with me, also alone. So what do the other directors have to do with you? Just stick to what you wanted to do from the beginning." Secretary Dang objected. "Coach Kim, do you know how fast rumors spread in a company? Don't let anyone know what happened in the VIP room. If, in this situation, the Vice President goes on the field," DSCO directly interrupted, "so Secretary Dang is worried the Vice President will have to bear a lot of pressure, right?" He was startled and stammered, "What are you saying? It's not like that." DSCO confessed, "But don't you know, baseball is a sport where players are always under pressure. If you can't catch the ball, there's pressure. If you pitch poorly, there's still pressure. Even if you're playing well and let the opponent be safe once, there's pressure. What you're saying makes sense, but still. If you're afraid of pressure and avoid it, you won't accomplish anything. If there's pressure, just face it. Let people say what they want, just bear it. Then surely, there will be a good chance to strike back." Suddenly, Hong Chu called DSEO back. He said he wanted to ask him something. His eyes were somewhat serious. In your miserable baseball career, was there ever a time when you really struck back? A single powerful hit? He confidently replied that in one season, he managed a few hits like that. Hong Chu smiled faintly. Seems like your baseball skills aren't so bad. Let's go. It's time to warm up. Shortly after, at the stadium for the competition, people had already gathered in the stands to watch the upcoming match. In the handling department, two guys were chatting. Looks like they're about to start. One staff member was curious about what Vice President Hong Chu was doing at that moment, but the guy next to him sarcastically replied, "Probably went straight home, right? He looked like he was about to pass out from high blood pressure." "Actually, no, he hasn't gone home, the thing is." The commentator began introducing, "KH Group has sent in a substitute player, the one stepping onto the field. Oh my, what is happening here? That is an amazing warrior. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Executive Director of KH Group, Vice Chairman Hong Chu." Indeed, he has been reinvigorated by DSEO's words, confidently and firmly walking onto the field. The two earlier individuals were overwhelmed upon hearing this. What, hasn't he gone home yet? What is this? Is he really going to participate in the game? While they were bewildered, Danan was right behind them, and the commotion from the stands made her somewhat curious. What is going on? Back on the field, the game had officially entered a tense moment. The commentator constantly updating, "It's now the 9th inning, and KH Group has reached the second base. If there is any mistake, the game will end immediately. In such a critical situation, they choose to send in a substitute player. Is this a wise choice?" The commentator's question made Danan feel awkward, as if she had some personal thoughts on the matter. "I'm not sure either, let's just wait and see." Flashback to 30 minutes before the game started, Doty received bad news from his teammate. "What, a wrist injury?" he said. "Couldn't you have been a bit more careful while defending? What do we do now? All the available players have been used." With no other options, Doty had to go to DSEO for a discussion. "Hey, you're DSEO, right? I guess we'll have to rely on you to step in this time." He refused this invitation with a gross excuse. "Why me, coach? I have a chronic condition." Doty was confused hearing this strange story. "Yeah, I have hemorrhoids. It was fine just now, but suddenly my backside hurts a lot. Are you kidding me? How could someone like this be a substitute?" Nobody knew that this was part of DSEO's plan. He pointed to a nearby player and introduced, "Sorry, but luckily there's still another player. The chosen one was none other than Hong Chu. He looked a bit past his prime but certainly not completely useless. On the field, Hong Chu asked DSEO about the strange condition he had mentioned earlier. "Hey DSEO, are you alright? Were you late to practice because of that?" DSEO revealed it was just a joke. "I wouldn't step in so the vice chairman would have a chance to play, this kid." Next, he whispered into Hong Chu's ear, "Listen carefully, Vice Chairman, the opponent will deliberately let you walk 100% because they don't want to face you." This was hard to believe for him, so he didn't agree. However, what DSEO said next finally convinced him. "There's no time to explain every detail, you just need to listen to me. If you feel walking to the base isn't so bad, just stand still on the field. You can even make it to the first base. Otherwise..." "What?" Hong Chu wondered. "Otherwise?" "Swing the bat short and block all incoming balls. Even if it's a foul ball," DSEO said, "even if it's a foul ball." He flexed his hand open and closed skillfully. "While you're defending, I'll send you a signal. If I raise my hand, it means hold steady with the defense strategy. But if I clench my fist, it's a signal to swing with full force, right?" Hong Chu continued, "Exactly." DSEO promised, "If you hold out to the end, I'll make you the star of today's game." Back in the game, the commentator excitedly rallied the audience. "Everyone, please give a big round of applause to welcome Vice Chairman Hong Chu of KH Group." The sweat gleaming on his face, catching the moment, Hong Chu realized something. This is it. Just one hit, after causing so much trouble all this time. Hong Chu's hands gripped the bat tighter. "Tae-san, if you saw this, what would you say?" As for the pitcher, this young player was under even more pressure. As he faced such an important figure, he thought to himself, could it be that now? Feeling nervous, he thought, because on the other end, Hong Chu was glaring right at him. In a corporate baseball tournament like this, how could Vice Chairman Hong Chu be like this? Seeing the situation getting out of hand, DSEO clapped a few times to bring Hong Chu back to focus. "Vice Chairman, I think you're overthinking this. Stay focused, focus." In a few brief moments, Hong Chu shot a disbelieving glance at DSEO. How did that kid immediately know what I was thinking? What a strange guy. When the pitch was signaled, the player quickly gained momentum. then threw the ball straight forward. A loud sound echoed, the ball was left untouched by Hongchu and landed neatly in the catcher's glove. Valid, he caught the ball, playing it safe, perhaps. Finally, Hongchu accepted what DSEO had said. DSEO was right. The pitcher didn't intend to face me directly. Another pitch came hurtling in, and he swung the bat thinking, if this ball hits me, things will get very complicated. No wonder that kid kept throwing AI Rang during practice. Exactly, if it were any other ball, I wouldn't know, but if it's an AI Rang ball, the one I've practiced with until I was exhausted for the past 10 days, Hongchu decisively swung the bat and successfully hit the ball. The commentator shouted, it's a hit, but unfortunately, the ball went beyond the fair line. The front row audience praised endlessly. Our vice chairman is amazing, right? At that age and still able to hit like that. Hey, stop talking nonsense. The game became more intense as time went on. The commentator remarked that no one expected this to be such a drawn-out game. It's already the 8th hit. The situation seems to be getting more complicated. At the same time, Hongchu's name quickly spread and echoed throughout the stands. This only made the young pitcher more fearful. At the same time, Hongchu saw the sign the pitcher was giving, and it matched exactly with what DSEO had said earlier. He easily understood its meaning. Young DSEO is also signaling. Hey Tae-san, your friend isn't down for the count just yet. I'll show you. Right now, a pitch was thrown, but this time, Hongchu missed. The unexpected situation left him astonished. I can't believe it, the ball hit the ground. DSEO immediately jumped up from above. Why are you still standing there in a daze? Quickly run to first base. It wasn't until then that he realized the situation and hurriedly ran. At that moment, the vice chairman made it to first base. Another ironic situation occurred. Why are the defensive players in such chaos? No one still knows what the outcome will be. On DSEO's side, he continued urging Hongchu to run faster, even scolding him for being too slow. In response, our vice chairman wasn't far behind. Even though he was panting heavily, he still tried to curse back. You bastard DSEO, wait until the game's over and see what I do to you. Even though he saw the base, the distance was still a big issue. He wondered if he could reach it. Pushing that thought aside, Hongchu was determined to touch the base, leaping forward with all his might. Whether he succeeded or not remains unknown, but on the field now, Hongchu had touched the base with his hand, while the catcher also had his foot on the ground. The entire audience fell silent, waiting for the commentator to announce the result. The quiet was so intense you could hear the sound of every spectator gulping. Hongchu nervously looked at his opponent. What's the result? One remained silent, while the other kept complaining, I'm about to pass out. What's the result? Only the referee's hand signaled. He repeated twice, not valid. Both Hongchu and DSEO were frozen like statues. This defeat also marked the end of the game. Hongchu left with a face full of disappointment, muttering, that was clearly wrong. Clearly, I was faster, I was safe. Next year we have to use video review technology for the tournament. Next, Hongchu called DSEO over. Hongchu wondered why he hadn't said anything. He expected him to yell at him like he was an enemy. But DSEO pouted and denied it. I've never done that. He added, baseball is like that, it doesn't always go your way. But what I don't understand is how you got distracted during such a crucial moment. DSEO recalled the fateful pitch and lamented, that's the only regret I have. The two then stopped by a bench in the waiting room, and this was the moment when Hongchu poured his heart out. Kid. It was because I was just too excited, as you said, when the I-Rang ball came flying toward me. The feeling was amazing, giving me goosebumps, and I thought the opportunity to show myself had arrived. A smile gradually appeared on Hongchu's lips. I was truly happy. It felt like my whole body was re-energized. I'm getting old. He also mentioned the name Salin. He's old now. I wasn't like this before. Even though the work was successful, since the results were never in hand, I still couldn't relax. Now, just seeing a pitch makes me emotional. DSEO was sitting next to him, complaining about having to listen to too much from an over-the-hill old man. It's so annoying. And so what? Are you now going to complain that your dream promised to Chairman Tae-san has shattered and cry, is that right? What, just because of one failed strike you're so depressed? Then what about me, who gets hit with 30 home runs each season? I should be done for. Hongchu scolded, this crazy guy. Who comforts people like that anyway, regardless. Although it wasn't a final hit, I still think the vice chairman has achieved part of the goal. Maybe he doesn't realize it. Suddenly, the commentator's voice came through, Salin is number one. Salin is still alive. This caught DSEO's attention. My whole body felt it. I don't know what DSEO was thinking, but his tone was more excited than before. He told Hongchu that no matter how much Chairman Donnan dislikes him, Right now he can't be gotten rid of, right? Maybe he'll give you a new task. He laughed at the words of a kid. This guy is so naive. Do you think everything in life goes the way you want? Outwardly, that's how it seemed, but inside, Hongchu silently acknowledged the feeling DSEO gave him. It's been a long time since I felt this happy. Training, games, even the time spent with this kid. DSEO expressed his desire to invite the vice chairman to a meal. He also emphasized that Hongchu had to treat him for all the effort he had put in. However, a phone call interrupted them. Hold on, kid, Secretary Dang is calling. Hongchu quickly answered the call. What did you just say? You said who wants to meet me? His bewildered expression made DSEO very curious. Putting aside DSEO's invitation, Hongchu rushed back to his company. As soon as he pushed open the door, he asked, What now, at this hour? Chairman Danan, it turns out she was the one Secretary Dang mentioned. Danan handed him a document and said, I've just reorganized the senior personnel. Executive Director Chong K.Y. will move to be the chairman of Donsen High School. Chairman Sang-I will move to the Gumha Historical Organization. As he read it, Hongchu found it hard to believe. All of them, leaving like this? The names on this paper are all people who worked with me. The ones who helped build the KH Corporation are leaving, and soon there will be new people to replace them. This day was bound to come sooner or later, but still, the emptiness is overwhelming. He thought and glanced over at Danan. Her action snapped him out of it. Hey Danan, are you biting your nails again? I've told you so many times, doing that will bring bad luck. Danan didn't seem worried at all. Her lack of reaction left Hongchu feeling embarrassed. He blushed and hurriedly explained, Chairman, actually. That's when Danan finally spoke. She just smiled softly and said, In your eyes? I'm still just a child, right? Hongchu shook his head in denial. What? No, that's not it. You know I believe you'll lead KH Corporation well, but the reason you haven't stepped down until now is, I know, Danan responded. In front of him, Danan continued, It's because of the promise with my father, about getting into the top 10 corporations. But I have to make one thing clear. I have no intention of giving that task to you. This statement left him confused, and Hongchu speculated that it might be because of the situation in Russia. Danan nodded. The issue with the Russian network played a part, but wasn't everything. Because that's my responsibility. Did you think I only promised to have lunch with the president at the Blue House with you? Danan had no intention of stopping. Her words grew sharper. To me, that was also an important promise, one I want to fulfill on my own, even if that means I will forever oppose the only person who can scold me for biting my nails. In that brief moment, Hongchu understood. So in the end, you will push me out too, but... Suddenly, Hongchu spoke again. That's right. After a long sigh, he smiled mysteriously, and I felt a strange peace. The promise with Chairman Taesan was the driving force that kept Hongchu going to this point. But it was also a heavy burden. No matter how exhausted he was, he couldn't stop. Maybe it's time to pass this on to someone else, and cheer them on from behind. Hongchu comforted himself that he should truly retire now. However, Danan called him back. She handed him a small bag and said, Take this. What is it? This is something my father never let go of until he passed away. With that, Hongchu took it and opened it. It was a ring with AK engraved on it. Danan explained that it was a symbol of her father's distant hope. In 1996, when KH made it to the autumn baseball playoffs for the first time, my father was so happy, he kept saying he could smell victory, and he had this ring made immediately. Hongchu reminisced, That's right, at that time I tried to stop him, but it was useless. I even teased that it was a symbol of delusion. I thought he had thrown it away. I didn't expect him to still keep it. Danan smiled. I thought so too. But when I visited him in the hospital, my father always held it tightly in his hand. He didn't say a word, just silently looked out the window. Actually, I had intended to keep this secret to the end, my father's regret with the baseball team. Hongchu was quite curious about this. After hearing her story, he wondered, Why are you showing this to me now? Because I've found it. Danan said, the person who would care for the team in place of her father. Vice Chairman, when I saw you playing today, do you know what I realized? The moment you lunged to catch the ball that hit the ground in the field, I had my answer. After that, Danan expressed her wish for Hongchu to take responsibility for the baseball team and fulfill my father's final wish that he never expressed. About 3 days later, DSEO was playing video games on his computer. As usual, he failed at this level. I thought I had it this time. At the same moment, Soman passed by. He suggested that he play a different game. Then came a half-hearted compliment from Soman. I've never seen anyone play online cards as poorly as you. If this were real, you'd be bankrupt. Looking at his current rank, DSCO started to daydream. To join the pro tournament next year, I need to reach platinum on this website. How many more levels do I need to climb? When he decided to conquer it again, he received a call from Vice Chairman Hong Chu. DSCO found it strange that he would call at this time. Nevertheless, he picked up the phone. The person on the other end told him to have breakfast with him this Sunday at 7 a.m. He was baffled and complained, "What is this old man saying all of a sudden? The contract's over." But he still calls. After dressing neatly and stepping out the door, a black car pulled up in front of him. The person who stepped out was Secretary Dang. "Is Coach Kim doing well? Please get in the car." As soon as he got in, DSCO said, "The vice chairman said we had a breakfast appointment, but where are we going?" "Oh, today. We're going to Donsan." "What, Donsan?" "Yes," Secretary Dang replied. "I'll take you to KH's stadium." DSCO was surprised to hear Secretary Dang's words. "If it's the KH Canon Stadium," Secretary Dang smiled and said yes. "So, the vice president is now taking on the role of CEO and acting owner of KH Canon, and he will leave the CEO position at KH Global?" DSCO thought to himself, but there hasn't been an official announcement yet. North Saline with the baseball team. But the position representing the baseball team is considered an easy one, even within large corporations. Some say it's like exile for disgraced managers before leaving the company. Should I congratulate or comfort him? And those worries of DSCO were really unnecessary. At KH Canon Stadium, Hong Chu's angry voice echoed, "Do you all have brains or not? What kind of baseball coach operates like a revolving door? The one who did it before does it again, and the one who was fired is now a candidate again. Has the baseball team been running like this all this time? If you don't find a new coach immediately, then the next time, jump into the West Sea, got it?" Then Hong Chu chased them out. "What are you doing? Hurry up and find a coach." DSCO, who just arrived, witnessed the scene and sarcastically remarked, "During the internal baseball tournament, you kept complaining about being old and washed up, but you still talk pretty tough." Hong Chu was about to step out to call those people back when he suddenly noticed DSCO standing there. He smiled warmly in greeting. "DSCO, you're here. Weren't you supposed to meet me for lunch? Why did you call me here? Why are you still standing there? Come in. Everything is happening just as you said." DSCO frowned and asked, "What do you mean? Don't you remember? During the internal baseball tournament, you said, it's okay if we don't hit the ball, as long as we get the desired result. Chairman Donan was very moved after watching my game, and said he might give me a new job. It came true, really true." He sighed and said, "If I had stayed quiet, I would be somewhere peaceful fishing by now, but now I can't rest. What's this about?" DSCO wondered, why did this suddenly happen? Suddenly, Hong Chu called out, "Hey, DSCO. My goal is to help Canon win the championship within 3 years. I'm getting older. I can't drag this out any longer. My plan is to bring Canon to the top of the Korean League in 3 years and then retire, with no regrets." DSCO, hearing this, felt a bit confused inside. To the top already? A team that finished last and never made it to the fall baseball season. How can they become champions? Hong Chu, resting his chin on his hand, continued, "The plan is ready, the issue is with the people. This team lacks talent badly, but most importantly it lacks someone who shares my vision." And he had made a decision. "So, DSCO, join the baseball team. You're recruiting me?" He replied, "Yes. I'm the personal coach of the vice president, but with that position alone, I can't be the general manager or administrator." Hong Chu was shocked. "What?" Then he angrily shouted, "Hey kid, when did I say I'd give you the position of general manager or administrator, someone who couldn't even make it to the pro league and had to play in China? What makes you think you can dream like that? Do you have any shame?" DSCO asked. "Then why?" "The role of the general manager and administrator is important, but I think the role of the person closest to the players is just as important." "You mean assistant coach?" You catch on quickly. Perhaps next week there will be a recruitment notice for the assistant coach for next year's spring training camp. There will probably be many outstanding applicants, but I'll arrange for you to be accepted." Hearing this, DSCO was stunned. "Is this going through the back door?" Hong Chu smiled and continued, "So I will achieve my final goal in my baseball career. And you will fulfill your unfinished dream. How do you feel about that?" DSCO was suddenly taken aback. Unfinished dream? But then he stood up suddenly, his eyes full of determination. "I understand, Vice President. I will join the baseball team." Not long after accepting, North Saline officially began his work with the baseball team. As soon as he was appointed CEO and acting owner, he announced that he would comprehensively reform the team. A reporter asked, "With this appointment, and as the head of KH Canon, what is your next goal?" My goal is to help Canon win the Korean championship. There's no other goal besides that. His words were bold, and everyone was interested in the big moves of the vice president, even though the fans weren't very supportive. I also submitted my application, interviewed, and got ready. Now there's only one thing left. At that moment, DSCO received a message from KH Canon. Congratulations, we are pleased to inform you that Mr. Kim DSCO has passed the selection round for assistant coach for this year's KH Canon training camp. Thank you for applying. That evening, DSCO's family held a cozy party to celebrate his joining Canon. Cheers. They laughed and joked together. Dad, I knew it. Coach Kim is no ordinary person. How could such a talent stay in amateur baseball? Coach Kim is the future of Korean baseball. Hearing this, DSCO said, come on, the future of Korean baseball? DSCO's mother interrupted. Stop ruining the mood. Go get more soju and wraps. At this time, Dee-chang was in the kitchen preparing more dishes. He asked, anything else? Get more soju and wraps. After a few moments of thought, Dee-chang suddenly asked DSCO, what wind brought you there? What do you mean? You used to throw a fit about wanting to play cards. Didn't you say you wouldn't rejoin the baseball team until your annual salary was 100 million won? DSCO replied, becoming a professional card player isn't easy. No matter what I do, I'm always at the bottom. Really, since high school the whole family told you to give up on baseball. But you kept trying, going to America and China. But you changed just because you couldn't rise up in card rankings? Hey, the meat is burning, come on, it's beef. DSCO rushed outside, we're out of soju. I'll go to the supermarket to get more. Hearing this, Dee-chan yelled, what, DSCO, are you trying to sneak off? Finally escaped, sometimes my brother is too sharp. Why do I want to play baseball again? It's not because of the ambition to achieve a big dream or to make a lot of money. Recalling the words of Vice President Hong Chu, DSCO, I believe you can become a director or manager. You have a great insight into baseball. You take good care of everyone. And above all, you're not easily shaken, even when you fail. Canon needs you. DSCO thought, until now, no one has ever truly needed me, and they also said, after all, the team lineup is already full. Frankly speaking, this guy isn't that good, but because of connections with the management, our team is short on bullpen pitchers, if we assign that to him. For the first time, DSCO felt that someone truly needed him. I've been at the bottom for too long. I don't know if I can make a big change. But I'll give it a try. The next day, at the Superstar Baseball Stadium B1, Coach Kim, I know, you just got the job at Canon, right? Thanks to everyone for the past time. Thank us for what? We should be thanking Coach Kim. After chatting for a while, DSCO suddenly remembered, Coach Han, I have something. I remember you like Korean beef, but I haven't given you anything during all this time. Coach Han received it, and couldn't help but feel emotional. He quickly ran over and hugged DSCO. I'll miss you so much. They laughed and joked. Coach Han is crying, isn't he? After that, DSCO took another ride to KH Canon, feeling happy inside, thinking, people are so kind. Suddenly his phone vibrated. Messages from family members came pouring in. DSCO, you're not coming home for another 2 months. Why didn't you tell me about this? And Dad wished him a great new start, and his older brother Dee-chan. On Monday the KH team is going to Jeju, right? Bring back some orange chocolates for me. It even made DSCO exclaim, look at the enthusiasm. But sending these messages like this, it's because they have expectations of me, right? Then he responded with another message, I will go carefully. This time, I definitely have to do well. We're almost there, and the announcement on the bus echoed, the next stop is Dongsan City Hall. Those heading to Cannon Field, please get off at this stop. The scene shifts, and a voice calls out, Coach Kim, Secretary Dang, right? I'll just call you Kim DSCO for convenience now. Secretary Dang, it's been a while. You're a team employee now, right? Dang proudly asked, how do I look? Better than ever, actually. How's the vice president? He's quite busy. After taking office, he's been even busier. Currently, he's preparing for the overseas spring training camp, so it might be hard to meet him anytime soon. So, I guess Secretary Dang is very busy too. Why are you here? Today is Kim DSCO's first day of work. The vice president said there's nothing special to mention, but DSCO asked, you have something important to tell me, right? Secretary Dang nodded and continued, actually, the fact that the vice president instructed you to join the team is known only by the business support team. I have made it very clear, but rumors will still spread. So if someone asks about your relationship with the vice president, just say you know him. There's no need to deny it. Just say you've met a few times, and they won't bother asking further. And if there are situations where you need to mention your past work experience, I think you should only talk about your experience in the independent leagues in the US and Japan. Upon hearing that, DSEO understood, no need to mention China to avoid being looked down upon. Exactly, the vice president wants you to adapt smoothly to the domestic team, and I hope the same. After that, DSEO was led into the meeting room to meet other employees. Hello everyone, I'm Changgu, head of operations for the Canon team, and beside me is a woman who introduced herself. I'm Cho Yu-hai, deputy head of the same team. First of all, I want to congratulate you all for making it through fierce competition. As everyone knows, our baseball team doesn't usually have large recruitment drives, so you've been given a very good opportunity. Your official contracts with Canon will last for 3 months, but that's not all. Those who excel as training assistants will be selected to join Canon's management team when the season opens. Now let's introduce ourselves a bit. Suddenly, Deputy Head Yu-hai became extremely tense. Manager, oh my god. Sorry, I have an urgent matter to attend to. Please wait a moment, everyone can introduce themselves in the meantime. This left the new recruits utterly confused. What's going on, is it that urgent? They kept discussing, maybe it's because of Chang-ho's contract renewal. Chang-ho, do you mean the player Ryu Chang-ho? Yes, although it's not in the news yet, it's said Chang-ho is prolonging salary negotiations with this team. I'm quite close with Chang-ho, by the way. Oh, I'm Odanchin. I graduated from Namdang High School and played baseball at Tsingbuk University. 4 years ago, I was selected in the 8th round, 76th pick in the KBO draft. Upon hearing this, they couldn't help but admire. A former player, impressive. I've started, now it's your turn to introduce yourselves, right? At this point, DSEO thought to himself, 8th round, 76th pick isn't that amazing, just the usual bragging from former players. Clearly, after Danchin's introduction, it seemed everyone's morale had dropped considerably. After the others introduced themselves, one person turned to DSEO and asked, "What about you? Is it your turn now?" "I am," but before he could say anything, DSEO's empty stomach growled. "Let's grab something to eat and continue later." After that, they were equally surprised. Kim DSEO, so you were a baseball player? Are there many Koreans in the independent league in Japan? Do they select players through tryouts in the US too? And about training in Japan? Hearing so many questions at once, DSEO spoke up. Hold on, one at a time. They kept praising, DSEO, you're really good. All my baseball friends have quit by now. If you don't get picked for the pros, most people choose another path, right? So it's impressive that you still play in the independent leagues, DSEO. Thank you, everyone. Now let's eat before the food gets cold. Suddenly, Danchin curiously asked, but DSEO, why did you choose the independent league? Even if you're not picked for the pros, there are still ways to play baseball in Korea, like becoming a developmental player for a pro team. He kept asking mockingly, or was it that you didn't get any offers like that? Surely not, right? After saying this, Danchin smirked sarcastically. Chu-hun quickly stepped in to stop him. Let's talk about that later. But at the same time, DSEO responded, are you jealous, oh Danchin? You're jealous because everyone's only talking to me, aren't you? This hit the nail on the head, leaving Danchin both flustered and embarrassed. I've never thought that way. DSEO laughed and said, Danchin, this is just a casual meal between us, no need to be in such a rush. Let's have a private chat, I have a lot to say, actually, this might even be better. By the way, Danchin, how old are you? I'm 26, sir. So, you're 6 years younger than me, huh? Youth really is something else. At this point, DSEO felt a bit ashamed. Using age to pressure someone is a bit low, but who told him to provoke me first? Well then, let's eat, Junior. Let me serve you some meat. After lunch, the official orientation began, with presentations from the management team one after another. After the lessons, those who lived far away were assigned to individual dormitories for the players. DSEO was also amazed. This is better than I imagined. Back in the independent league in the US, our dorms were always getting shot through with bullets. Suddenly, the door opened, and Doti walked in. Hello? DSEO asked, are you Doti? Yes, and you're Kim DSEO, right? Yes, it looks like we'll be roommates today. Looking forward to your support, Doti said shyly. Right after that, DSEO thought to himself, he's the oldest among the new recruits, a year older than me, but already married with a daughter. He seems much more mature. With someone so grown up like him, I really don't know how to act. Suddenly, Doti's phone rang. Mina-san, konnichiwa, thank you for coming to see me today. Let's have fun together today. This startled Doti. Why is this thing playing sound? Doty was incredibly worried. May I ask, did you hear anything? DSEO hesitated, unsure how to respond, but in reality he had heard it loud and clear. Meanwhile, Doty couldn't help but worry. What should I do now? I just happened to run into someone who used to be a player. Don't athletes hate things like Japanese anime? Maybe, but if rumors spread at the company. Seeing his body trembling with fear, DSEO suddenly thought, has he experienced this before? Then DSEO spoke up, that was the sorceress Duri-chan, right? What? How do you know Duri-chan, DSEO? When introducing myself, I said it already, I played in Japan's independent league for a few years, and one of my teammates liked anime, so I got to watch a few episodes. It's pretty interesting. Doty was overjoyed to hear this. Really? He smiled and said, I didn't expect you'd seen Duri-chan too. Seeing this situation, DSEO thought to himself, I guess everything's fine now. The next morning, DSEO hurried to the cafeteria. Oh no, I finished the morning practice late today. I wonder if there's still any food left. Seeing the trays, DSEO sighed, completely empty. I'll have to make do with this. Suddenly, Doty's voice called out, DSEO, over here. I already grabbed a meal for you. Come over and eat. Ah, really, thank you, it's nothing. I saw you doing your morning workout and figured you wouldn't be back right away, so I grabbed an extra portion. DSEO felt a bit embarrassed and said, you didn't have to do that. Doty smiled and replied, you shouldn't skip meals. We'll be running around all day once we get to Jeju, so eat up to keep your strength. By the way, DSEO, actually, you've never seen the female sorcerer Duri-chan, right? DSEO was surprised. How did he know? Last night, I thought it over carefully. Duri-chan is a movie that just came out this year, so there's no way you saw it 8 years ago in Japan. Oh, I didn't mean to accuse you of lying. You probably said that to cover for me because I was so embarrassed, right? You're really perceptive, thanks a lot. Afterward, DSEO understood that was why he took on the breakfast duty for me. Oh, and by the way, Doty, speak casually, no need to be so distant. Oh, right, brother Doty. How did you know I was in Japan 8 years ago? I never mentioned the time, and Doty responded, didn't I tell you? Just looking like this. But I've been active for nearly 10 years at Baseball Finder. Baseball Finder is ranked among the top 3 baseball statistics websites in the US, along with Baseball Reference and Fangraphs. Player evaluation data from this website is even used to determine salary levels for players and official teams. DSEO praised, that's impressive. Doty shyly said, not really. I just often leave negative comments under other people's analysis posts. So how could I not know everything just by typing your name? DSEO quickly asked, so, do you know? Are you asking if I know about your career in China? I do know, but seeing that you didn't bring it up, there must be a reason, so I stayed silent too. And I think that was a good decision. In the baseball world, there are still bad habits of ranking and looking down on others for things like that. But I hope you don't feel too ashamed of your experiences in China. Cultural aspects, and the potential for growth in other leagues will be crucial if you want to work in the team's management. Hearing these sincere words, DSEO breathed a sigh of relief. Initially, I thought I would be a good motivation for Doty. But it turns out he will also be a good motivation for me. Doty persistently asked, but how did you know I was watching Duri-chan? You've actually watched anime before, haven't you? Meanwhile, DSEO thought to himself, although it all feels a little strange. That afternoon, after arriving in Jeju, preparations for spring training officially began. Those of us assigned to the stadium in Jeju were thoroughly trained, just as Doty had said. We carried luggage all day and used rakes to smooth the field. And after finishing setting up the banners to cheer on the players, today's work was officially done. Everyone worked hard today. Tomorrow's tasks will begin at 6 a.m., so please take note. And the training camp guidebook is over there. Be sure to take one on your way out to refer to for your work. Great work today. Those who are ready, please get on the bus. But Doty noticed something. DSEO, seeing that, asked Brother Doty, what's going on? There's something off with the roster for Team 2. Look, Ryu Chang-ho is listed on the Team 2 roster. Chang-ho? Really? Yes, the number 4 hitter for Canon, a legitimate 5-tool player. I actually got to meet player Ryu Chang-ho, whom I had only heard about before, when the players for Team 2 arrived at the training camp the next day. Typically, the feelings players have when they first join Team 2 are the same. Disappointment for not making Team 1, worry about whether they'll do well, and what we can do for those players is cheer them on and encourage them as much as we can. Go, Canon! Canon, let's go! Everyone, keep it up! To ensure the players can start training with a good mindset. Thank you, we'll do our best. This first day was important for exactly that reason. That's what was written in the training camp guidebook. DSCO smiled, thinking, so this is the role of the management team? Although not visible, the role is to help the players maintain their best performance. Suddenly, DSCO noticed something. What's going on over there? It's today's main event, of course. Everyone here is waiting for that person. Ryu Chang-ho, number 4, the team's hope, has fallen to Team 2. The next day, spring training for Team 2 of Canon began, and along with it, the shouts of the players, we look forward to working together. Shout a bit louder. How can you make it to Team 1 like this? 2 more laps. While the players were warming up with light defense drills, we also began our work supporting the training. Even though it was just simple manual labor, no one seemed too upset, right? Maybe it's because, while organizing things, DSCO overheard a conversation between a few people from the team. See, are you talking about that player Chang-ho? I find him completely different from the other players. His perfect physique makes it feel like I'm looking at a star from the main roster. I heard their scouts have already started reaching out. It's known that since player Chang-ho joined Canon 4 years ago as a rookie right out of high school, he has truly built an outstanding career as an outfield player. He won the Rookie of the Year award with 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases. The following year, he set a record with 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases, earning MVP of the season. Since then, he's consistently achieved overwhelming results, and is the only hope of Canon, so fans are certain he will join the main team, which is only natural. So why is player Chang-ho attending Team 2's training camp? The female assistant remarked, I tried looking into the articles about that, but strangely, there's no related news. I heard he had a conflict with the new coach. After listening for a while, DSCO felt something was off. A superstar of the team participating in Team 2's training camp without any word from the club. Just then, Danchin came over to explain, no need to worry about that. It's just a formality. His words left the two feeling confused. A formality? So it doesn't have any special meaning? Do you all remember? On the first day of the meeting, the manager had to rush out. Oh, right. At that time, Danchin said he was going to sign the contract with player Chang-ho. I heard Chang-ho was the last player to sign among the KH players, so he couldn't participate in the fitness test that took place just before the spring training camp. Not participating in the fitness test means he got sent down to Team 2? Exactly. For Chang-ho, the fitness test is a piece of cake, but if he didn't participate, how could he make it onto Team 1? So the only option was to drop him down to Team 2. If this were publicly announced, it would cause quite a stir from all sides. The club has already taken measures. It's a fortunate but also unfortunate situation for the team. This situation has left him extremely frustrated. To put it harshly, if player Chang-ho really is in a slump, this could be an opportunity to help him find a way out of it. In that case, the one who stands to benefit the most is Danchin, right? The moment I heard you call Chang-ho by his name, I knew it. You two have something going on, don't you? What are you talking about? After being teased, he hurriedly explained, Chang-ho and I only met once or twice back in high school, and since then, we've only occasionally greeted each other. Come on, help us get to know each other. We want to greet him too. But he just smiled and said, I don't know if I'll have time. At that moment, DSCO pondered to himself, why did I suddenly focus on that? Moving to DSCO's house, he asked Odi, did Danchin really say that? He admitted, it's not hard to understand. To someone like him, you're his biggest obstacle. But DSCO was still curious, do you mean I'm his competitor? Exactly. After the training camp, only about 2 or 3 people will be offered official jobs. Those who aren't former players, of course, will feel pressure, but why should you? Now it's about figuring out how to stand out. Suddenly, Doti's mood became serious. DSCO, don't you feel uncomfortable? Our job is just to support baseball, and delivering lunchboxes. How are we supposed to show we're good at that? Contrary to him, DSCO optimistically said, don't worry, the training camp has only just started. Everything will fall into place soon enough, right? DSCO smiled confidently to reassure, certainly. A few days later DSCO's prediction came true. During the team's management training session, some changes were made. Everyone please pay attention. She spoke up and asked, does anyone have experience editing videos? After a few minutes of hesitation, a male student volunteered, and the club started assigning tasks based on the assistant's abilities. Okay, do you know how to use the data analysis equipment? Yes, I can set up and analyze the data. Meanwhile, someone came and asked Danjin, Do you know how to throw a practice pitch? Yes, coach, I know. While moving the equipment, DSCO overheard an announcement. Today we will see how Namdan's former ace performs. Yet he turned to look at DSCO with a contemptuous face. Thank you, coach, for giving me the chance. I've already gotten ahead of you. Seeing his smug face, DSCO felt frustrated but couldn't do anything. This kid's not bad at all. Seeing him standing there, the coach criticized him. What are you doing? Quickly bring the ball box here. Yes, I'm coming. Damn, no time for jealousy now. At this moment Danjin acted all superior. In baseball, professional experience is everything. Watch me pitch this ball. Let's see how DSCO will bow his head to me. Of course, first I have to impress the coach. So he threw a blazing pitch towards the opponent. After pitching, Danjin was excited. Wow, it reminded me of my playing days. Suddenly the coach came and questioned him. Why did you throw the practice pitch so hard? Take it easy, don't use all your strength. A few minutes later, Danjin decided to throw again but with less intensity. However, this pitch was once again met with scolding from Coach Bach. Hey Danjin, this is a riser ball. Danjin, what are you doing? You're pitching for practice. After a while, he made the coach angry. Think about it, this pitch is for the players to hit and practice. So what should you do? You have to throw lightly, gently. Now Danjin began to fall into despair. Until now I've only thought about throwing pitches that are hard to hit. So what kind of pitch should be hittable? After a while, the head coach gave an order. Coach Bach, let him sit down. If he can't even throw a practice pitch, what good is he? Look among the assistant coaches, is there anyone who knows how to throw a practice pitch? If there is, call them. At this point, he pondered, damn, only Danjin is a former pro player, is there no one else who can throw? And then he randomly called someone. Hey you, I heard you were the ace of Sungjin University, come throw a pitch. But the guy deliberately avoided. Even former pro player Danjin lost face. How could I be any better? Coach Bach tried calling others. Hey, you're a former high school pitcher, but despite that, everyone avoided his call. At his most disappointed moment, he accidentally heard someone calling him. It was DSCO. Can I try? Coach, can I try once? DSCO confidently told Coach Bach, I used to pitch a lot during practices at my old team. If given the chance, I want to try once. But he was skeptical of DSCO's ability. This kid isn't from the pros, he's just some wanderer from some independent league. I heard he got cut from a team in China, and doesn't even know when to step in. But at this point, I can't pitch myself. Fine, go ahead and try. DSCO happily responded, thank you coach. Then, can I take a look at today's player training plan? Hearing this, the coach was puzzled. What do you want to see? He explained, in KH, people call it a strengths and weaknesses checklist, or a training list. Each team calls it something different, so I'm not sure. Anyway, I want to see the list of today's player training items. In the end, the coach agreed, we call it the training plan here too. Suddenly he arrogantly questioned, but why do you want to see it? Do you want to pitch according to the player's training plan? Despite that, DSCO remained firm. Isn't that the way it should be? If it's just a pre-game pitching session, then it's just about helping the players adjust their batting timing. But right now we're in spring training. Each player has different strengths and weaknesses, and their training application differs. If I know that, I can throw the right pitches to help them. Seeing DSCO's professional attitude, even the coach was impressed. This kid seems to have studied the theory well. So he decided to let him try once. Don't overthink it, just pitch today so the players can hit comfortably. But before he started, he turned to ask, like in a pre-game practice, right? Yes, that's how it is. However, he still doubted DSCO's ability. He talks big, but we still don't know. What are you waiting for? If you understand, hurry up and pitch. He kept thinking, this kid doesn't have clear origins, but at least he's trying. DSCO said, if you're ready, I'll start pitching now. Before his pitch, Coach Bach arrogantly thought, maybe teaching him a bit wouldn't be so bad. Finally, DSCO's pitch was delivered. His pitch made everyone satisfied. The ball flew over the fence. Great pitch. Today Chunho's hitting is good. Hey Chunho, are you planning to hit everything? Why is your hitting so good today? That guy is DSCO, right? At this point, DSCO offered to the coach, may I pitch one more time? At that moment, Coach Bach recognized the superior skill. This kid's good. His ball control is precise. He hasn't even seen the training plan. But he's already figured out the players' favorite pitches, so the batters are thinking, why does my hitting feel so good today? Could it be that the training is starting to pay off? At this rate, they might compete for a spot on the first team. Sure enough, the head coach also took notice of DSCO's talent. Hey Coach Bach, who is that kid? He revealed, that's a guy named DSCO. He's probably thrown for about 10 players already. Hey manager. After DSEO's pitches, the players flocked over. Will you pitch for us again tomorrow? Can you throw 5 more for me than today? Me too, DSEO. Right, throw me 10 more pitches. Senior said you like the pitching machine, right? DSEO smiled to himself. Turns out working for teams without pitchers helped here. Calm down everyone. If I pitch for one and not the other, that wouldn't be fair. See you all tomorrow then. Seeing DSEO surrounded by so many people made some seniors jealous. What? So pitching is such a revered position. Damn it, if I'd known, I'd have tried pitching too. DSEO smirked. Being treated like this doesn't feel bad at all. Just then, Coach Bach came over and said, "You're DSEO, right? You've worked hard. Sorry I didn't recognize your talent sooner. Even the head coach liked the way you pitched. He said it's been a long time since we had a proper training session like that." After saying that, he handed him a list. "So take this. This is the player training plan. It's just today's, for reference. From tomorrow, come to the coach's room to get the list from me." Hearing that, DSEO wondered. I heard assistant coaches aren't allowed in because of confidentiality. That's true, but you're different. This is an order from the head coach. Who dares to argue? It seems that he has changed his opinion about you. That night at DSEO's apartment. At this moment, he was using pain relief patches on his arm. It's feeling better now. In the past, throwing over 100 balls was no big deal. But now, after just a few practice throws, my shoulder is already sore. My muscles and joints are starting to demand retirement. I need to start training again. DSEO suddenly pulled out the plan, but it was the training plan. That coach seems strict, doesn't he? His face always looks exhausted, and he's constantly yelling at us to clean up the balls, so I thought he was just doing things half-heartedly. But it turns out everyone is giving their best efforts where no one can see. Just then, Doti rushed in from outside. "Hey DSEO." Seeing how hurried he was, DSEO asked, "You've been coming home late a lot lately. I heard you accomplished something big today." That's what the guys from the analysis team said. They said you pitched really well today. Even the head coach was pleased. I was working on something else, so I felt a bit guilty. But now I'm relieved. If everything goes smoothly, who knows, maybe both of us will be officially hired. Sounds pretty solid, right? One from a player background, one not. Doti looked so excited that it made DSEO curious. Did something good happen to you? He gave an awkward smile. It's that obvious. I was trying to hide it. I guess I'm just easy to read. Actually, yesterday I proposed a way to help a player get through a crisis. And today the team leader approved it. Tomorrow, the team will officially propose it to that player. If he agrees, we'll proceed with the training plan. What Doti said made DSEO really happy for him. That's amazing. You've achieved something significant too. But then Doti asked, "Do you know who that player is?" Brace yourself for the surprise. Who is it? Doti then revealed, "It's player Chang-ho." Just hearing the name made DSEO so shocked he was speechless. Doti smiled at DSEO, the top superstar of Canon, Chang-ho. Of course, the team leader didn't say who it was explicitly, but in Canon, there's only one person who set such records. It seems that since the second half of last season, Chang-ho started to lose balance in his batting technique. After hearing this, DSEO asked, "You noticed that?" He replied, "Analysis technology is really advanced these days. A few clicks, and you can see everything." Anyway, it seems that Chang-ho has been making an effort to adjust. There are signs that he's trying to change his batting stance, and the data also shows that he's been working on correcting his timing. If this had been dealt with at the start of the season, it probably would have been resolved. But unfortunately, the season ended right as he was struggling, and during the off-season, Chang-ho tried various ways to fix it but ended up losing balance completely. Some players are like that. When baseball isn't going well, they can't see anything beyond it, almost like they're obsessed. DSEO thought to himself, so all those rumors about him returning to the first team soon were just nonsense. Then he asked, "But how did you figure out a solution for Chang-ho? After all, many people have already given him advice. Did you discover something that others didn't?" Doti explained, "It's nothing too groundbreaking. Anyone in strategic analysis could have found this fix. I just looked at the right data. Simply put, instead of focusing on the launch angle, focus on exit velocity to create stronger hits through muscle memory." DSEO listened but didn't understand. Exit what? He was confused. "Let me explain again." Back at home, DSEO yawned. "I'm so sleepy. I worked too much yesterday." He recalled when he asked Doti how to make this exit velocity feasible. Doti was stumped. DSEO, stop it. Then he thought, should I stay up all night to ask Doti more about this exit velocity thing? Modern scientific baseball isn't as simple as it seems. I used to think it was just some mathematical game far removed from real baseball. But the strategic analysis team does this every day. Impressive. I wonder if young players can immediately understand these complex concepts when they hear them. He walked toward the development team's dorm, meeting room, and training room. Just in time to overhear. You understand what I mean, right? You used to focus on hitting, right? From today, focus on the exit velocity of the ball. DSEO grew more curious. Exit velocity. Doty mentioned that yesterday too. If that's the solution Doty proposed for the player, then it must be Chang-ho. Inside the training room, he received a sheet. This is the training schedule. Today there are 2 more people. These 2 just dropped from the first team yesterday. They're probably quite discouraged. Make sure they can hit comfortably. The list of the second team players includes Ma Chodu, Bak Dong-ho, Lee Se-hook. He hurriedly called Bak back. Coach, I have a question, he replied. What is it? He asked. Where is Chang-ho training? I only saw him on the first day, and then he disappeared. I shouldn't say I just met him though, right? Coach Bak said that kid's always been an outsider. Don't know why he chose baseball. He should have picked something like marathon instead. He rambled on. Usually, I'd force him into group practice. But now that he's in such a severe crisis, just pretend you didn't hear anything. Chang-ho looks strong, but he's actually quite sensitive. If people keep gossiping about his struggles, it might prolong everything. Anyway, I guess sooner or later there will be a news article about this. But we must try to prevent it as much as possible. Chang-ho needs to find a solution on his own sooner rather than later. At this moment, DSEO was washing his hands. He thought to himself, a solution. If it's a personal problem, how can he find the solution himself? He'll need help from the people around him. Chang-ho is no exception. Just as he thought of this, he appeared. I wonder if he saw me pass by. It'd be weird to act like we don't know each other. But saying hello is awkward too. He's too famous. As he was hesitating, unexpectedly, Chang-ho spoke first. Isn't the 4th floor a restricted area? I heard that no one but baseball club staff are allowed on the 4th floor. Hearing this, DSEO got a bit nervous. So he did see me. Chang-ho asked again, are you a reporter? Where are you from? Depending on your answer, the club might take its own measures. He quickly waved his hand. I think you've misunderstood something. I'm Canon's assistant coach. He looked even more puzzled. Assistant coaches aren't allowed on the 4th floor either. At this point, DSEO explained, that's true, but I was just assigned pitching practice duties starting today. So I came up here to get the training plan from the coach. The head coach already agreed. Chang-ho seemed surprised. The head coach. Now that you mention it, I think I did hear about that. DSEO stayed silent, but inside, he was cursing, suspecting people like that without apologizing. That's typical of these top baseball players. Suddenly, he asked, were you a player? He admitted without hesitation. After hearing this, he asked, how long did you play baseball? DSEO answered, about 20 years. After asking, he explained, I only asked because the head coach acknowledged you. Then suddenly, Chang-ho seemed serious. When you were in a crisis, how did you overcome it? What do you mean? The conversation was recounted to Doty, who was extremely impatient. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you say anything? Are you trying to make my night shift even more boring? Finally, DSEO responded, then I didn't say much else. I just said if you don't know, be honest about it. That'll be more helpful. He was even more surprised. What do you mean by that? He replied, I saw his face. It seems like Chang-ho doesn't understand what the strategic analysis team was talking about. I got to hear Doty's explanation all night, but Chang-ho didn't. Doty said, actually, if you don't know, you should ask. But will that really help Chang-ho get out of his crisis? I'm not sure. DSEO wondered. Why not? He explained that while coaching me yesterday, I also learned a few things. Nowadays, people often praise data-driven baseball, so I thought the players had mastered the basic concepts. But when talking to you, I realized that this is not the case. Many players in their youth rarely pursued education. They only trained from a young age and were seldom formally educated, so how could they understand those things? In any case, the strategy analysis team has already addressed this issue. They are finding ways to explain it clearly to the players. DSEO responded, I thought so too. So I told Chang-ho that if you don't find the answer, come to me again. He was surprised, coming to you? Do you have any plans now? You just replied vague. Chang-ho is a unique person. I don't know if he would take advice from an assistant coach. Doty suddenly changed his attitude. DSEO, you don't understand what he means. Doty looked astonished across the room. This is Chang-ho, right? Indeed, he is approaching. DSEO greeted him. Nice to see you again, Chang-ho. However, he went straight to the point. The matter is, although he smiled, he was secretly scolding him. This kid, so young yet so shameless. Chang-ho said earlier, you told me that if I couldn't resolve it, I should come back, right? So I have come. Please tell me, how can I overcome this psychological crisis? DSCO listened and smiled lightly. Of course, I will explain. But first, let's move to the sofa over there, Mr. Doti, let's go. He didn't expect Doti to come along. Chang-ho felt the same. Wait a moment, this person is coming along too? Doti added, that's right. With me here, Chang-ho won't feel comfortable talking much. DSCO laughed. No, he needs to be here. The person who will explain Chang-ho's crisis management plan is not me. It's assistant coach Doti. He was extremely surprised to hear this. What do you mean? What are you saying? What do I need to explain? You are a teammate playing with him, so you explain it yourself. However, DSCO insisted, no, you must do it. The idea you propose just needs a detailed explanation. Just explain it thoroughly to Chang-ho. Doti was stunned. What do you mean by detailed? It's just like strategic analysis. In the end, Chang-ho had to speak up to stop this ideological struggle. Wait a moment. He looked at Doti. Do you mean that this man will explain the strategy analysis team's measures? DSCO immediately corrected, not the man, but assistant coach Doti. He became angry. Are you joking me? Hey DSCO, I've been struggling with the strategy analysis team all day, and now you're telling me to listen to more from them? Then you turned away abruptly. Enough already, this is nonsense. I really shouldn't expect anything from a pitcher for Team 2. I'm going to bat now. If you two have something to say, handle it yourselves. Doti was stunned. DSCO, what should we do now? He was thinking to himself, it's too late to demand swinging the bat now. Regular team players are different. This kid is so charming, but I won't let things stay like this. Then he called you back, Chang-ho. Do you think now is the time to casually go bat? He turned back irritably. What do you mean? Tomorrow, an article will be published in the Hansong sports newspaper. Hearing this, he was stunned. What? Who leaked this? Will there be an article about my psychological crisis? DSCO laughed. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? Starting tomorrow, you'll be surrounded by a lot of attention. Once there is an article from Hansong Sports, other media will not remain silent. And the internet will make a huge noise. What else? Recently retired baseball players have all kept quiet, right? Those guys will swarm like bees and demand you say a word on their channels. Just thinking about it is exhausting. Upon hearing this, Chang-ho felt overwhelmed and asked, so what do you want me to do? He patted him on the shoulder and said, just give me 10 minutes. We are not as bad as you think. He replied, all right, just 10 minutes. He thought to himself, it seems this person has already spread my information to the media. Otherwise, how would he know there will be an article tomorrow? Just pretend to listen. If something goes wrong, report to your superiors and let him vanish. Then let's begin. They went to a room. Doti began to speak. Don't focus on the batter's isolated strike, pay attention to the exit velocity. So when players bat, they have to use devices like Hoei or TrackMan, which are commonly used in sports to track the movement of objects. Hoei is more advanced than TrackMan, capable of better tracking the movement of the ball or players. DSCO was extremely confused. What kind of demon is that, old man? However, Chang-ho just said, I've heard those things before. He scoffed. So what? Chang-ho thought to himself, what the domestic strategy analysis team says only gives me headaches. It doesn't help baseball at all. They all speak in English, who can understand it? If asked further, I wouldn't know anything. Anyway, I don't expect much. DSCO silently observed him. Then he spoke to Doti. Mr. Doti, I see it this way. If I were a baseball player who didn't want to learn, hearing you explain it like that, I wouldn't grasp it at all. Chang-ho was surprised. You've been playing baseball for 20 years and don't understand? At this moment, you should explain it as if to an elementary school student. Make it simple, explain it to me. He felt reassured, so it's not just me. Doti took the feedback. Understood, it's simple. Exit velocity might be difficult to translate into Korean. In simple terms, exit velocity is. DSCO criticized, I don't speak English, explain it again. He tried to explain, statistically speaking, in any way you put it, I'm stumped. I don't understand statistics, explain it again. Doti patiently added, so decimal numbers, who knew you still wouldn't get it? I don't know math. Finally, he couldn't stand it and shouted, hey, how else can I explain it more simply? Without using technical terms, the basic concept will be diluted. DSCO pretended to leave. I told you I wanted to hear it in English. I just want a simple explanation. He was even more annoyed. Simple, so just summarize it as, just hit the ball hard. Then he turned to Chang-ho. Chang-ho, you've been stressed lately and not batting well, right? Just let everything go, focus only on hitting hard. He strongly shook DSCO. Is that enough? Is it simple enough? Does it get through? Then the respondent said, Chang-ho, yes, it's much simpler now. He spoke seriously. So the ball's speed is like that, right? You could have said that from the beginning, wouldn't that have been better? So, what exactly do I need to do? Doty was not surprised. Oh, I see. He suddenly realized, right, players without technical knowledge need to have it explained simply to understand. However, he was still astonished. So, DSCO, you asked me to explain it simply. Is it to help Chang-ho understand better? At this moment, DSCO just smiled lightly. Doty looked at him differently. He is trying to make Chang-ho understand what he's saying. DSCO thought to himself, maybe Doty is right. It's better for people in the same profession to talk to each other. As for me, I'm not very patient. If it were you, you would probably scold him, you idiot. If he still doesn't understand, just swing the bat. Taking this opportunity, Chang-ho might listen to others' opinions, which would benefit his baseball career in the future. Doty smiled and concluded, all right then, to hit the ball hard, you must follow the numbers in this chart. DSCO reminded him, sir, your eyes are glazed over. He was astonished. You just mentioned the statistics, and it's already done? He replied, just keep it simple. Then he took out a board. Look at this. This is the analysis data of your batting. The higher the red area, the better you hit. Chang-ho glanced at it and said, so if I refer to this data during batting practice, I can know whether my hits were accurate or not, right? Doty was delighted. Exactly, that's correct. Do you understand now? That's why the strategic analysis team keeps looking at their tablets all day. He said, yes, I also find this data very useful. Deo explained it very clearly. But thanks to Tseo pointing out the confusing points, I understood it better. Upon hearing his name, his eyes lit up. You mean me? Just now he called me Tseo. Suddenly, he asked, how do you always know exactly when I don't understand? Can you read my mind? Deo said, just by looking, you can tell. You two are exactly alike, both hate studying. But Chang-ho, why do you address me differently than you do Tseo? He honestly said, Deo looks much older than Tseo, and that hit like a thunderbolt. What? What did you just say? I'm only a year older than this kid. What older are you talking about? Chang-ho was surprised. Really? Tseo said, then I'll speak more casually with Chang-ho, still a little angry. Go ahead. He teased, you hold grudges too much. Deo scolded, shut up, kid. Not knowing how much time passed, when Tseo was sleeping, he was suddenly called. Opening his eyes to see Deo, what's up? He hurriedly said, get up, fool. He yawned, is it morning already? Last night, Chang-ho begged me to talk more, and I remember going to the room with him. It's so cold, why didn't he give me a thicker blanket? Deo seemed tense. Now's not the time to talk about blankets. It's past 11, we're late. Hearing that, he jumped in shock. What? About to get scolded again, Deo reminded. Quickly put on your clothes. We have to get to the practice field fast or we'll get yelled at even more. Just then, the batting coach called. His face turned pale. Just mentioned, and he appeared. As soon as he heard, he was scolded harshly. What time is it? Do you know how many calls I've made? He responded, sorry, coach, we'll be out soon. Suddenly, the coach added, and hey, who's crazy enough to work all night just because Chang-ho asked? If something came up, at least report it to me. Tseo thought to himself, did Chang-ho already explain everything? It seems the situation isn't too bad. Then the coach said, take a break this morning, have lunch, then head to the main field. This afternoon, Chang-ho will have a live batting session in front of the coach. Both you and Go, what's his name, the assistant trainer from the strategic analysis team, Chang-ho specifically requested the two of you to watch. Don't be late, he said and hung up. Deo couldn't believe his ears. What the heck is going on? A while later, the two went out to the field and met a coach. You're here already? Coach Bach told you, right? Chang-ho will have a live batting session today. This is the first time an assistant trainer gets to participate in a live batting session, but we have to wait for the coach to arrive before starting. Just wait in the stands. Deo skeptically said to Tseo, something feels off. It's just a live batting session, yet they're preparing equipment. Normally, you don't even see the head of operations, yet today the press is also present. It must be because of this morning's article by Spot Hansong. The article mentioned that Chang-ho is stuck in a performance slump. Seo sighed, there's a lot of chatter, but if Chang-ho performs well in this live session, everything will be fine. Deo replied, let's hope so. At that moment, the coach and Chang-ho came out. Everyone greeted the coach. He said, alright, let's begin. Is the pitching coach ready? Is Chang-ho ready too? He responded, yes, looking forward to your guidance, coach. Then he stepped onto the field. Seo just sat and watched, but thought a lot, damn it, even though I tried to act unrelated, why am I so nervous? It's such a pity, if I had met Chang-ho a few days earlier, I could have shown him more. As the coach threw the ball, he prayed, please do well. The press is gathered in large numbers. At that moment, their expressions changed. Chang-ho was extremely nervous, anxious to make contact with the baseball. Everyone around him cheered him on, do your best, come on Chang-ho. But Chang-ho's hit didn't go as planned. Everyone felt regret, some sighed in disappointment. Oh no, was that a grounder? Reporter Chu-hun whispered to her colleague, his condition isn't good, huh? Chu-hun's colleague, also quite worried, said yes, the ball came straight down the middle, but he hit it as a grounder. Seo and Deo were watching attentively from the stands. Seo turned and said, Deo, that kid really hit the ball hard. Deo agreed, it's completely different from before. Coach Bak was running over to Chang-ho, thinking to himself, did he remember what Deo said yesterday? Suddenly, Chang-ho stopped him and said, Coach, please wait a moment. Chang-ho ran to the manager's table and asked, can you check the data from the last hit for me? The manager was initially surprised, huh? Data? Then he gave Chang-ho the tablet to view. Seeing Chang-ho so focused made him feel strange, thinking, this kid is asking for data, how odd. After reviewing the data, Chang-ho immediately ran back to his position, signaling, alright, let me try again. Deo carefully observed Chang-ho's expression and was very puzzled. What did that kid just do? Was he pretending to review the data in front of us? Seo thought the same, seems like it. Seo was secretly pleased, good, understanding theory and applying it in practice are two different things. Yet he not only tried it in front of many people, but also improved himself. Just by looking, you can tell that Chang-ho's performance slump is completely over. Coach Bak threw the ball, and Chang-ho carefully aimed at the ball as it slowly descended, to make the most precise hit. Then, Chang-ho swung and hit the ball. He focused entirely on the hit. This time, the hit wasn't a miss like before, it flew high into the sky, over the stadium fence. After this hit, everyone marveled and praised him, great job, Chang-ho. The reporters on the field were all surprised, and head of department Chang-gu, sitting in a corner, observed and was very pleased. He smiled and said, Chang-ho, that's enough. Coach Bak ran over to Chang-ho and playfully scolded, hey kid, don't you know your limits? Who hits the coach's pitch with full force? Chang-ho respectfully bowed and replied, thank you coach for your hard work. Reporters gathered around Chang-ho, continuously praising and also asking questions. Chang-ho, you've truly made a comeback. That third hit earlier was amazing. Chu-hun pointed a mic at Chang-ho's mouth and said, I'm from Goryeo Sports, may I ask you a quick question? Your batting form today was great, may I ask one thing? Suddenly, someone called out to Chang-ho, look over here for a moment. He turned his head. Then he saw his brothers sitting in the stands. They seemed very close and understood each other well, so when Chang-ho raised his thumb, they knew it meant, did you see it? Seo and Deo high-fived, their eyes filled with pride as they looked at Chang-ho. Back in the coach's room, everyone was excitedly saying, congratulations, Chang-ho. Head of Operations Canon, also known as Bak, said, you regained your form in just one day, what happened? Head of Development Canon was also excited, this is heaven's blessing. This morning, I was so nervous after reading Han Sung's sports news. If you didn't perform well, the team's atmosphere would have been awful. The coach directly asked, so Bak, can we move Chang-ho up to the first team now? Bak replied, of course, we have to. Although we haven't received direct instructions from Coach Piman yet, from what I've heard, he's very pleased after watching the video of Chang-ho's batting. Manager Don-san told Chang-ho, perhaps tomorrow morning you will go to Okinawa, so get ready. This season, there is a lot of work for you to do. If you need anything, just say it. Chang-ho immediately expressed his wish. I have some training assistants I want to bring up to the first team. Manager Don-san was a bit surprised and asked, training assistants? Chang-ho explained further, if I want to perform well this season, I cannot do without them. Don-san directly asked, who are they? Chang-ho said, it's Mr. Diak from the strategy analysis team and Mr. Kim Dseo, the practice pitcher. The head of the strategy analysis department of Canon showed great interest and said, Diak? He's fine, just bring him up. Then the head of strategy analysis told Manager Park, Mr. Diak is talented, truly a core member of our strategy analysis team. Although he is a bit old, he graduated from a prestigious school and was the one who came up with the method to help Chang-ho overcome his slump, Manager Park calmly said. He's just a training assistant. Are you finding an excuse to recruit new people? The managers kept enthusiastically discussing among themselves. But as for Kim Dae-seo, who is he? There are many others who are better. Apart from being a practice pitcher, he has no outstanding background. Well, he does have a background, that Chinese tournament. Then it's decided, we'll only bring Diak up to the first team. Chang-ho felt extremely annoyed and a bit angry as he watched them discussing back and forth about his brothers. The development manager said, even the training assistants know the team's situation. If we bring both of them up to the first team, wouldn't it affect everyone's morale? In fact, in his mind, he was thinking, Diak is okay. But if we bring up Kim Dae-seo to the first team, there won't be room to bring up someone else. And the person I want to bring up to the first team is not Kim Dae-seo, but someone else. Everyone else agreed, then we'll only bring Diak up to the first team. After listening to them, Chang-ho remained silent, then he began to express his point of view. If the managers have decided so, I understand. I will stay in the second team to prepare for the season. Upon hearing this, the managers were shocked. Mouths agape, what did you say? Manager Park told Chang-ho, what are you talking about, staying in the second team? Others chimed in, do you know how much the team has been disrupted because of you? You should be thinking about getting to the first team and performing well. Chang-ho seriously told them, the reason I require both of them to be brought up to the first team is because I believe it's necessary for me to perform well this season. The morale of the other training assistants in the second team has nothing to do with me. The head of strategy analysis was very surprised to see this side of Chang-ho, this guy. Chang-ho thought to himself, I just need to play well, and to play well this season. I absolutely need those two, definitely. Mr. Diak will teach me about baseball. And Mr. Dae-seo understands my psychology the best. Then, Chang-ho firmly told the managers that my baseball career cannot do without them. The development manager heard this and posed questions to Chang-ho. So if after the season starts, we cannot bring both of them up to the first team, will you stay in the second team forever? Chang-ho retorted, I haven't thought about that. This left the manager speechless, stunned, stubborn fool. Then the coach calmly said, someone who understands your psychology. This is the first time I've seen you make such a request. You have always only thought about yourself. But you're a foolish guy who loves baseball, persistently swinging the bat every night. Seeing change, Dae-seo received a phone call from the coach. Not understanding what was going on, he asked in panic, who is calling me? Seeing change to the Canon manager's office, the principal told Vice President Hong-chu, thank you for supporting our baseball team. Mr. Hong-chu smiled and said, you don't need to do that, principal. When students come to our stadium, they will naturally want to join Canon. After all, it's all for the development of our team. The two shook hands. The vice president kindly told the principal, I look forward to cooperating with you in upcoming support projects. The principal smiled broadly and replied, thank you, Vice President. After seeing off the principal, Vice President Hong-chu returned to his office. He sat down in the chair and sighed in relief. Finally done, so tiring. Then he told Secretary Dang, had I known it would be like this, I would have handed over the director position to someone else. Secretary Dang smiled and said to the Vice President, but you would still be the one working the hardest. Mr. Hong-chu suddenly remembered and asked, how is the article? Secretary Dang said, you mean the article about Chang-ho. There's nothing special that needs handling. There are reports that he performed very well in live batting and in helping Chang-ho recover his form. Assistant coach Kim Dae-seo contributed a lot. The vice president was lifting his teacup to drink. But upon hearing that, he paused, surprised and asked, that kid from Qingdao? Secretary Dang immediately replied, yes, thanks to that, he has been brought up to the first team. Mr. Hong-chu asked worriedly, is it okay to bring him up like that? Have my acquaintances found out yet? Secretary guessed, very likely they have. Because according to the report, the head coach has agreed to bring up Kim Dae-seo to the first team. Mr. Hong-chu continued to ask, what is the reason? Secretary Dang chuckled and said, because he supposedly has good vision. The vice president was still puzzled. Good vision, the ability to grasp the psychological state, physical condition, and injuries of players, that's what the baseball team's management values most. That is not only important in the team's work but also in all aspects of life. Although outwardly, Mr. Hong-chu appeared very cold, inside he was very proud of his son. Well done, kid from Qingdao. He asked more about other things, and then what? What role will that young island boy play in the first team? Secretary Dang immediately replied, There's no specific information yet, but it seems that he will work under the head of the international department, Mr. Songbom. Hearing that, the vice president said, the international department, huh? This young island boy, he's going to have a tough time ahead. Scene transition at the airport. Coach Back, upon seeing DSEO arrive, said to him, the management head is really something else. Knowing full well there's no one good left in the second team, and yet they still took you away. DSEO chuckled at that. Coach Back continued, DSEO, you're the same. When the head asked if you wanted to move to the first team, you should have said you still have a lot to learn in the second team. Hearing Coach Back's playful words, DSEO felt very happy, smiling brightly. The two seemed to get along well. Coach Back said, look at you, why are you smiling? DSEO replied, Coach, you're smiling too. Then Coach Back burst out laughing, joyfully saying, this kid, congratulations, kiddo. I had a feeling when you asked for the training schedule, but I didn't expect you to move up this fast. DSEO felt very grateful to Coach Back. It was all thanks to the coach. Thanks to the coach for letting me do practice pitching, I had more opportunities than other assistants. Coach Back laughed and said to DSEO, you realize that, huh? Planning to finish eating and run off now, huh? DSEO panicked and said, wait a moment, let me go buy you an iced coffee. Seeing him like that, Coach Back couldn't hold back his laughter. No need, kid. I'm the one who criticized you for not being selected for the professional team, and now if I had anything to the opportunity you've worked hard for, it wouldn't look right. If you want to repay me, then take this. DSEO was puzzled, not understanding what kind of paper Coach Back was handing him. Coach Back said, this is a list of the players who were promoted to the first team during this spring training camp. I've written down the notable points I remember about the kids who stayed in the second team last season. The baseball team may seem to work a bit sloppily, but it has its own process. I'm just the hitting coach for the second team, so it's not convenient for me to say anything to the first team guys. So I hope you'll thoroughly understand this content and pay more attention to those kids. DSEO hesitated, saying, can I really do that? Coach Back emphasized to DSEO, why not? From now on, you're an assistant coach for the first team. You're the one who saved Chang-ho from a crisis, remember? So I trust you'll handle it all. Then Coach Back handed DSEO a bottle of water. Seeing that, DSEO thought to himself, what is this? Truly an old man at heart. Seeing DSEO's tense expression, Coach Back asked, what's wrong? DSEO scratched his head and said, nothing, I just feel a bit strange. Coach Back, surprised, asked, strange how? DSEO shared his thoughts, since I came here, I've seen everyone at Canon working very hard, including the coach, but in recent years, we haven't made it to fall baseball. Hearing that, Coach Back felt a bit troubled. What, well? He paused. Then also looked dazed and said, yeah, why is that, I wonder? If I knew, I wouldn't be in the second team, I'd be the head coach or director by now. Outwardly, the coach appeared carefree, but in fact, he was thinking to himself, DSEO, you still don't understand Canon, kiddo. DSEO landed in Okinawa, Japan. Chang-ho said to Doti and DSEO, the coach is calling, I have to go now. DSEO encouraged him, yeah, go on, good luck. Then Chang-ho said to the two, from now on, I hope you guys will help me more. DSEO laughed and said, this kid is so adorable. Doti, pulling his suitcase, said, let's go in, DSEO. Doti excitedly said, I wonder how fancy the first team's training field is. I really want to see it. The equipment must be the latest type, and the quality of the grass on the field must be very good too. But when they actually stepped onto the field, Doti was stunned, his face turning pale. DSEO looked the same, his expression utterly bewildered. Doti, panicking, said, DSEO, the first team's training field is terrible, horrible, why is it like this?